Well, it's harder to do music live in the field, Charles.
Well, you did a great job.
Didn't work out that well with the music, but that was supposed to be the Terminator theme music as we are on the verge of the coming technocracy.
Exactly. We're standing in front of Trump Tower. There is no protest as yet. I'm surprised, actually. If I were looking to make trouble and get focus, I'd certainly organize a protest in front of here and maybe even block traffic and start chanting. But they're not doing that. Before we get into the substance of the presentation, the art department deserves a shout out.
Sorry, we got a bus here. Thank you very much, Charles. Yeah, there it is. There was apparently protesting going on earlier, and then a lot of people were emailing me. Sorry, on the image. The reason I wanted to create this, Charles, is because I want to spend some time today talking about. Here's this guy again.
Which? Oh, that guy.
That guy with the French music.
Yeah. Should call him Frenchie.
Well, that's him.
Yeah.
But I wanted to spend some time talking about this concept. I mean, people love it when bad things happen to people that they don't like. That's pretty bad. But, for those who don't like Donald Trump and see him getting shut down by Twitter, they think that's fantastic. But for me...
No, it's outrageous.
Of course. I'm thinking about the concept that some company run by some 40-year-old jackass thinks he has more power than the President of the United States, and sending that message to everyone in the world is so dangerous, it's got to be stopped immediately.
It's not that he thinks he has power, he exercises that kind of power.
Right.
And this is just yet another example in the template of unregulated globalism that national laws, careful, don't matter, and that what matters is what our global overlords want to accomplish on our behalf as we're locked down under the fake pandemic lockdown. Why don't we go?
Sure.
And so that the various tech people could move as quickly as they did in sort of a concerted
collusion,
lynching,
Charles.
frankly, lynching of the Trump and his supporters. And now, let's go down 57. And now get the word out that any Trump supporter, any Trump member in the administration is not going to be able to work after Trump leaves. And it's not enough, according to the babbling bartender bimbo AOC, it's not enough that Trump gets impeached. He should be forced to never work again in a position of trust. And that this communist, excuse my language, it's a very technical term, children, parents, put your hands over their children's ears. That communist fuckwad, Brennan, is now saying that in addition to all these types of penalties...
Wow, this guy's going the wrong way. What the hell is he doing? Wow.
Oh, he's just going to turn around.
Through the light to go the wrong way.
Yeah. In a BMW, no less.
Probably from New Jersey.
No, he's from New York.
Oh, it says New York. Wow.
Probably a stolen car. But anyway, Brennan believes, according to reports, that vocal supporters of Trump should be forced to publicly atone for their sins.
This is absurd.
I mean, it's beyond absurd.
I think we should test to see if he's a witch by floating him in the water, and if he floats, he should be burned, and if he sinks, then he's a witch.
Right.
Isn't that the way they do that test?
Right, but mass hysteria, I mean, this is not the first time a human population has undergone mass hysteria. This happens from time to time. That's what's going on now. And the people who supposedly on the left stand up for the poor and the downtrodden are the very people who are now trying to rip up the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, the judicial process, and just go after their enemies. I mean, imagine if the truly powerful people did that, which they don't.
But but wait a minute, aren't they doing that? Isn't that what the FBI and the DOJ has done?
I'm talking as a matter of course. We're very we're back now, I think, to pre-written history period. Who knows how long humans have inhabited the earth? Originally, some people would say 5,000, 6,000 years. Now I hear estimates as far back as 100,000. Written history really starts about 6, 7, 8,000 years ago. So let's assume the first human population was 100,000 to make the math simple. For 92,000 years, history was as simple as this. It wasn't written down. Ugg sees beautiful woman married to somebody else. Ugg seizes same woman, puts a rock through head of that woman's husband. And of course you couldn't write it down because the next Ugg would come along and do the same thing.
Right.
And that's where we're headed now. Laws don't matter, rules don't matter, precedents don't matter. Honor is not a sacred concept. There's no such thing. Everyone's a thief.
Thuggism is thriving. I mean, that was obvious.
Thug life.
On my walk up to meet you here, just getting eyeballed like crazy, getting accosted by, 14-year-old punks who are emboldened to, roll their bikes in front of the cop cars when the cops are making turns, and the cops do nothing.
Right. Now, just to orient people who are not familiar with Manhattan, we are walking uptown on Madison Avenue. This area in the 60s was very run down. There weren't these modern buildings. And then in the 70s, the old buildings started to get torn down eventually in the 80s. And it has since become one of the more fashionable parts of New York, where the high-end retailers all clamored to have an address on Madison. And as you'll see as we walk uptown, store after store is empty. When I returned to New York from my sojourn in upstate, New York City that is, in July of 2007, I don't think there was a single vacancy on Madison Avenue. And that was right before the credit bubble burst, right before the crisis of 2008, 2009. So we're now in a period where there has been some recovery off the March 2020 lows in some elements of economic activity, but we don't have a team of rivals taking over the federal government and the Senate and the House. We have a team of criminal dunderheads who have no clue how to really build economic activity in the private sector, and indeed are intent on destroying private sector activity.
And they're well along their way.
Right. And in this great city, which has structural problems, it has too many public sector workers and retirees. It has wage scales that are just simply not justified. It depends on the largesse of the billionaire class, which to date has been willing to live here.
I've seen a lot of U-Hauls today.
Right. And
not that billionaires would use U-Hauls, but actually that's another good point. The people living in U-Hauls are not billionaires.
Right. And so this also used to be hedge fund alley in here. This were the super high-end big hedge funds all had offices. When I was explaining why I thought GE should go down in value, I met with most of them in here, including Carl Icahn over in the GM building. I had a one-on-one meeting with him for 3 hours. And, he's moved to Florida. And when a Carl Icahn does that, he used to live in Museum Tower in a big condo. He had a big place in, I think, Westchester County. When he, with his back office, moves out of here,
a lot of jobs go.
Gosh, not just the jobs, the money that those people spent
restaurants,
to live, and restaurants, and
hiring other people.
And once you make that momentous decision, people in New York City are very arrogant. We're very arrogant. This is the capital of America, the finance capital.
Yep.
And once you decide,
you're not coming back.
Never mind. Look at this, totally empty. This, I forget which store this was, but this was a fancy store across the street. I mean, you got the For Lease conglomerate is really, it's thriving everywhere. For Lease, 667 is the building where the billionaire Tisch family have a big office in there. Look at,
I saw a lot of ads saying, no more sharing, entire floors available.
Right.
I mean, there's just...
Right, and you look at this, here we are in January, and the restaurant business is crushed. Normally the restaurant business doesn't do much in the February, Valentine's Day in February, but it's pretty quiet first quarter. They make most of their money November, Thanksgiving through December, maybe a little on New Year's Eve, and then a bunch in April, May through September, October. But who's going to come back and open up a high-end restaurant in Manhattan right now?
I think a lot of people also probably took a pretty big hit in the restaurant industry on New Year's Eve, not having, that big holiday, Christmas, New Year's Eve, I think is not helpful.
And here we have, back in the plywood business,
Sergio Rossi.
yeah, across the
It says
street
it's
there,
open.
nothing.
Yeah.
Brunello, whatever's gone. Brunello Cucinelli. Here we have Ralph and Russo opening soon in theory, but I call bullshit on that.
Well, it could just be an optimistic, we don't know. They could change from day to day.
Right.
Now, so there was some kind of march going on earlier today. I saw a lot of people had on Twitter black bloc and
Right.
body armor and tactical vests marching 5th Ave, 7th Ave, something like that.
Right.
And
Take that into a strip club.
great advice, thanks.
What did he say?
He said take it into a strip club. I always take advice from homeless sages.
Nello is where
Street.
last place I had a meal with Ann Coulter was here.
I know.
Well, it looks nice.
There is pure imagination.
Excellent song.
No, this is a great restaurant.
That guy's got a great voice.
Yeah. You're right next to a vacant store. Chopard is a very expensive jewelry store. This used to be, I think, Bank of New York.
Madison Avenue branch, it says.
Yeah. But this was for the high-end customer. And these homes are like the ones that Epstein has further up. But you
Right.
can see these are the real old money, 1910 period or maybe earlier.
Old school Manhattan mansions.
Right. And who in there, even if you're worth $10 billion, who is going to want to live here?
Yeah, it's a very oppressive experience right now. Every 14-year-old thug is got something stupid to say as you walk down the street, and they're emboldened by the fact that the police really aren't doing anything. And I think that thugism is thriving right now. We've got to talk about the Capitol, Charles. I know a lot of people want to hear
Sure.
our input, having been there, and now having a few days to kind of ruminate on the.
Well, my friend, and you haven't met her yet, we should try to get her on the show, Celia Farber. And there's the Bank of New York, probably. That's what I was thinking of. Celia Farber was down there as well, and she's a truly gifted writer. She really is a fantastic writer. She got assaulted in the early analysis of HIV and AIDS for questioning the storyline. And
Right.
she did a fantastic piece in Harper's magazine, which you get, Celia Farber, F-A-R-B-E-R. It's really worth going back over the ground that she laid in that article. And she went down to Washington. The sum of what I didn't read the whole piece, but it seems she had an experience similar to our own. While we were there, unlike what you're going to see, assuming this BLM protest is still in session once we get there in a few minutes, it was really a very positive group of people, of patriots who drawn from all over the country, spontaneously show up.
Calm.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, there were certain altercations, but nothing horrible. It wasn't your typical trash fest that you see at some other types of protests. And it was, we won't say where we stayed exactly, but we stayed in a nice hotel, and not far from the White House, and people were very friendly in the hotel, and strangers came up to us, and strangers didn't exactly mob us, but quite a few people were nice to us, and we appreciated that, I think.
Absolutely.
But it was a sense that this was a defining moment in the evolution of this country that would be a good thing if you could afford it to be there and see with your own two eyes what was really going on. So, folks, as Obama likes to say, folks need to understand that people people on both sides of the issue are quite interested in creating images that can then be used to whip up followers or whip up the simpletons one way or another. Now look here, for lease across almost the entire block here. And this is 65th Street.
Yeah.
My youngest brother used to have an apartment, I think, around here. And when he did, a number of years ago, this was high end. I mean, there are tumbleweeds here. So my sense of, and I haven't had a chance now to watch either the 2.5 hour or the nearly 5 hour podcast, so I watched some of it. And when you're doing them, as you know,
Yeah.
you're focused on many things at once. You don't necessarily notice what's going on around you. At least I don't.
Well, you're noticing it in a different way. You're looking out to not get immediately punched in the head.
Right.
You're not like relaxed in your house, able to process all the images contained on a screen, you know?
Right. And I was struck, as I mentioned, I think on the podcast, by when Trump finally got there. He got there afternoon, I remember, because I remember you and I saying it's 10 of noon, he's probably going to come and speak any minute.
Yeah.
It took him a while to get started. It took him, the sound system a while to get to the
Yeah.
place where we could hear what he had to
Weird
say.
in and of itself that the music was so loud, but he could barely be heard.
Right, right. And when he got to the pivotal line, he said, this is great. He said, I'll never concede, I'll never give in. This was a stolen election, it's illegitimate.
Right.
He's entitled to that opinion, especially if it's borne out by fact.
Right.
And then he said, I'm going to walk with you to the Capitol, something like that.
Right.
And we're going to gather as a crowd.
And we are going to walk, I think I heard.
We or whatever exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't remember
Yeah.
precisely what he said, but the gist of it was that let's go over to the Capitol and let's stand outside the Capitol and hope that Mike Pence and the senators do the right thing. Not once did he say,
Go attack.
go inside the Capitol,
Right.
etc. Then when you go back over the videotape, quite a few people are now saying this. There's an article in American Thinker that I put out, not on Twitter, but on Parler
Right.
today.
Hopefully
Note
that'll
to the
last.
folks at Parler, it's not so simple to use. You should make it simpler to use.
Yeah.
But so that a simpleton like me can actually use it.
Yeah,
And
I agree.
you don't have to agree that quickly, Jim.
Well, no, I agree that it's not simple to use. It's
Right.
it's a little confusing as far as
So
the interface goes.
the ladies in the audience will know that La Perla
Oh, that's super fancy lingerie.
gone. How can you not sell La Perla in the most fancy part of New York?
It's the entire building for lease, it says. on
Now
that
I have a
sign.
pair of these shoes, not these, but actually these in black.
Is this guy the brother of Bob Lobb Law?
No, John Lobb is actually, the real John Lobb in England, it only does custom-made shoes. I don't know if this is, he probably has the right to use the name in the US. The ones I bought were not custom-made, bought them at Saks.
Landvin is out.
That's another big name. This thing is out. Giuseppe Zanotti. I have no idea who he is. Oliver Peoples. He's going
Glasses.
strong, whatever that is.
His glasses.
You heard of him?
Oh, yeah.
Really? So, very quiet actually today.
Well, this is definitely a more residential neighborhood, which I suppose is why that restaurant is doing well. Maybe it's like the favorite restaurant in the neighborhood or something.
Well, this is the area. It's funny when you really dig into it, as I
Oh,
did.
mannequins wearing masks.
Could get COVID from the other mannequin.
It's crazy.
When I did research and thought about buying an apartment up here 30 years ago or more, there are actually books that give you the floor plans of all the old buildings.
Uh-huh.
And what you discover is that while the addresses here are very nice and fancy, and if you have kids in private school, a lot of them are on the east side, and you want to live over here for that reason. The spacious apartments are actually on the west side, and to a lesser extent in Sutton Place. But this is an area where the average resident is so far away from being representative of the average American. I mean, these are people who have
Tons of money.
5 homes, have probably never made a meal for themselves in their adult lives, jet around the world, they probably have private jets.
Well,
access.
certainly not everybody around here has a private jet.
No,
but-
no, I'm just a large number of people here that would own condos or co-ops are very, very wealthy people, and typically they're not here on the weekend, so it's not surprising that you would see a few people out in the street.
That would also be the type of individual who would just leave the city for the entire unrest period and not come back.
Right. And then make a decision when they're out of the city,
Right.
you know what, this is pretty good not being here, sell that co-op.
Right. Well, the other thing that's happening, Charles, is that like so many things before it, there's a rush to a conclusion as to how these events actually occurred.
Right. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and they want to paper over the facts with their, fake news narrative, and any challenge to that now, you getting removed from social media or wherever you might have an opportunity to challenge it.
Right.
We've seen this amazing coordination between Apple and Google and Amazon, and they're acting as one. This is totally antitrust. It's technocratic totalitarianism.
Well, when you and I were doing a bit of this, I want to give a plug to our Norwegian colleagues at Document.no. Probably have a broadcast that went out just before our show started. Wonderful folks, and they're going back over our long playlist. They're going to do something, I think, once a week now.
Great.
And they were quick to point out the contrast between attitudes in the media and the punditry concerning the BLM protests.
Right.
And here in New York, for example, in Washington, D.C., and attitudes concerning the supposed riot down in Washington, D.C. I mean, they stand in polar opposition. And yet another argument for Cheryl Atkinson and Laura Logan and Sean Hannity, who I think can fairly prove that mainstream media is absolutely dead. I mean, they have their biases.
How is Sean Hannity not mainstream media?
Well, he's written several books years ago saying the mainstream, one I think was called The Death of Mainstream Media. He views Fox as being not, a network
That's
tied
crazy.
into, which it is, of course. But
Yeah, I mean, he's corporate owned, corporate controlled, corporate paid. That dude makes millions of dollars to wear a CIA pin and tell us what whoever is paying him wants us to know.
Right.
Wow. Now, I've been in there, but I don't know that I've ever realized that Ralph Lauren thing is like a mansion of its own.
Yeah, there's two of them. There's one over here.
So what is the story of that, Charles?
I don't know. It's a wealthy person's home converted into probably apartments now in Ralph
No, I
Lauren
think
or
it's-
just Ralph
the
Lauren.
Ralph Lauren store.
Yeah, and there's another one here on the left.
Also Ralph Lauren?
Yeah.
Wow, that's
And if you want, Jason, we could stop here and get a hot chocolate outside in 30-degree weather. And pay $15 for a
No,
glass
I
of hot
don't
chocolate.
wow.
You game?
Nah, thanks, I'm good. Oh yeah, I see that. Hot chocolate. Is that Ralph Lauren hot chocolate?
Probably. Peppermint hot chocolate.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not a doctor, right? And I'm actually very
Wow, there's
squeamish.
a huge line there for
Very
hot chocolate.
squeamish. Social
Either that or they're
distancing.
testing for COVID in there, Charles.
Right. And this is the place to see and be seen, I guess. But if you were just using common sense, if you got a cold, have some chicken soup kind of common sense, would you say that it's a good idea at 3 o'clock to go and stand next to a bunch of strangers you don't know and sit outside drinking hot chocolate?
I don't know. It's a fine idea. For me, I don't think it matters as far as just the whole
one thing goes
battery of things we've been subjected to for the past year are absolutely absurd. And now everybody is saying, well, that's just the beginning. It's
Right.
going to be mandatory vaccines, mandatory face masks, and by the way, technocratic socialism. And if we don't like you or what you say, you can't have money, you can't have a job, you can't have a Twitter account, you can't have a Facebook account. I mean, I got to tell you something. I was thinking about this. Facebook, take it or leave it or whatever. Before all this politicization of it, it was a good way for staying in touch with friends and socializing, and there was actually a time that I used it to do that and
Right.
stay in touch with people and even make friends, and they're
Right.
taking something away from your ability to have a social life by disallowing you to have that. And of course, they own the company. They can do whatever they want with it.
Right.
But that changes after you have a 12-year relationship with them and help them build their company, and then they just
Right.
shut you out of it. It's
Outrageous. So if I just could go back to the article I started to
Yeah.
mention, there's an article on American Thinker getting into the details of when Trump finished his speech and when
Ah.
the barricades came down.
right.
You okay?
Yeah, I just wanted to show people this.
It's a church.
I know, people like to see stuff like that, I think. And I'm not really sure what church that is, but so the barricades came down right after the speech, right?
Contemporaneously with Trump finishing the speech. And it's a
pretty
mile
fast.
and a half supposedly from the location where we were listening to the speech. Wow. And where the barricades were up in front of the Capitol. So how did the people get from the speech to the Capitol that quickly? And how did they know to do what they did? And now there's
Yeah.
a lot of video up,
They wouldn't have even heard Trump say it.
which I don't know if it's true or false, and we all have to be very careful about it.
If what's true or false.
The videos I'm about to talk about show bats being handed out from the inside of the Capitol to
Did you
protesters.
see that video?
I did look at it a little bit.
And did you see a bat being handed out?
I didn't look at it very carefully, Jason.
Okay.
But I did see, on the other hand, videos of people, guards, walking people into the Capitol.
Yes.
I did see that.
I mean, that makes no sense.
But again, what you see doesn't mean necessarily that it happened, because we have people who are adept at faking videos and this and that. So
I don't think so, because those were videos that were live streamed and were available seconds later, and creating a fake video like that would be
well,
something that would require a great deal of skill. And Charles, people have been identifying known Antifa members who were in there. That guy, what's his name, John Sullivan, I think?
Right.
He was arrested, and he's organizing Antifa stuff all over the country throughout the year.
right, this guy's a little frail. Yes.
So I mean, you know, he's there, fully a known Antifa guy throwing on a Trump hat.
Well,
That's the end of the question of were there Antifa in disguise?
Right. So my point is slightly different. My point is that if you're on a track to impeach for the second time the President of the United States, or try to, you get a trial conducted, you don't want the record to show that impeachment can happen hastily. Because in theory, you're only supposed to be impeached for high crimes and
Right.
misdemeanors. And so those must be, if it's a high crime, it's normal, it's not jaywalking, it's not exercising your First Amendment right as president to say that you were wronged, grievously wronged by a conspiracy, including Republicans and Democrats, to overturn the will of the people by dramatically affecting the election, throwing out Trump votes, accepting fake Biden votes, and conspiring with state government officials to certify manifestly false results. I mean, there's nothing, you have an obligation as president to talk about that, I would say. It's not a crime. What?
Well, this is Amazon delivery things now being used as planters. It's like the evolution of the pandemic.
And what a nice shack.
That's what I mean.
You know, you're very happy to pay rent for the space you can't
you
use
guys.
to make people live,
Right.
eat outside in the cold. And still, again, this is prime New York City location. To our right is the old Carlisle Hotel, place where I actually spent my honeymoon night.
Where is that?
Over there. Right there. It was January 9th, 1982. And it was a day when, a period when the Carlisle was very fancy relative to other hotels, and it's a treat to be there. Almost, I guess, 39 years ago today.
Well, I mean, again, Charles, the mainstream media, which now includes basically the known social media platforms, are only allowing the message that, you know, this was a call to violence by Trump and that he's responsible for that and therefore he must be impeached. And they don't want you, the FBI was very quick to come out and say they see no evidence of Antifa embedded in the crowd.
Of course they don't.
Well,
They saw
they
no
didn't look
evidence
at
of, the Russians go to them and say, you got a problem with the Tsarnaev brothers, and they say, no, we don't. James Comey said, we don't.
How is it that they had the Hunter Biden laptop for a year and they said, oh, they didn't want to talk about it because they were conducting an investigation? But one of the most significant events in the history of the country, they look into it for 48 hours and they say there's no evidence. If they had just looked at our video for 5 hours, they would have seen multiple elements of evidence.
Right.
There were Antifa people there.
Yeah. So going back to the celebration that we saw, sure, there were the odd hotheads. There were people screaming out different things. There was an idiot with a Confederate flag.
But we don't know if that was a real guy or
Right.
an Antifa plant coming there to get that on the news and say, look, Trump people are walking around. Charles, every single Trump supporter that we have met at all of these events have been very focused on don't destroy anything because we specifically want to show the world that we are not like that other side. So when you look at those images of people fighting with the cops, breaking the windows, storming into the place,
Right.
that looks like what we've been seeing in Portland and Seattle and from people wearing black bloc since the summer. It doesn't look like any event I've ever seen related to any kind of pro-Trump activity. And I agree with you, there were people there, particularly maniacs focused on the 17th letter of the alphabet, something I've been telling people was a mindless, stupid trap from the moment it showed up. And I hope that people realize now that when you follow these anonymous things, one of the key problems is they can slip in whoever they want, and because it's anonymous, you don't know.
Right.
I think that's been a trap from the beginning, designed to make its followers look stupid and ultimately do what they just did, associate it with some horrendous violence, and now anybody who supports it is seen as a crazy person. I've never supported it. I don't like it. I don't want people to email me anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you. So going back then to what we witnessed.
Imported maps, Charles.
Yeah, it's
And
Graham
real
Rader. It's funny. He when I sold my map collection, I did it partially using him. But
What did that guy say?
who knows? But I would say that it was a cold, windy day down there. We were out for, I guess, what was it, almost 7 hours in the cold. We only filmed for about 5. And people really hoped that, foolishly, it turns out, hoped that Mike Pence would have done the right thing and follow the law and the evidence, which he did not do. We have a lot of direct reporting from people, including Alan Dershowitz and others, falsely claiming that Mike Pence had no latitude as president of the Senate to insist that any questions concerning a certification of the vote be resolved. You can't, I mean, here we have people who want you to basically kneel down and pledge allegiance to BLM and prove that you've renounced your evil ways and your white privilege. But it's okay for folks to vote with no ID, multiple times from the grave. That's fine. You know, it's okay to stop the vote in key swing states so you can figure out how many ballots you need to manufacture. That's all fine. And those who could agree that that's all fine are basically blockheads. They're criminal blockheads. So we stand now 10 days or 9 days away from, I guess 9 days away from a moment where Biden's either going to be inaugurated or not. And Trump is either going to... It's
inevitable at this point, isn't it?
Well, Trump is either going to give in or say, I will allow the power to be transferred, but I do not believe that this president has been legitimately elected.
What would that do?
Well, it will increase uncertainty in the markets as to what will happen next. Will Biden turn the other cheek, or will he allow the hotheads in Congress and the Senate to go down a track of persecuting the Trump
Of course
family?
he will.
And if he chooses that, I think you're on a path towards civil war.
You might be right about that, Charles. I mean, you know, there are people now defending the 17th letter of the alphabet, and I have to say, anyone who doesn't realize that that was a trap intended to identify people who cannot think for themselves and to isolate them as a group so that an event like this could occur and be attributed to it. If you don't realize that, you are dumb. I'm sorry. And if that makes you not like me, I can deal with that.
So let's, what we're going to do is we're going to go up to 82nd Street, and we're going to walk down 82nd Street. We'll walk by the apartment building where I used to live. Then
Charles,
we'll walk up
the
3rd.
reason I'm saying this is because it's important that we have a clear, not we, I'm speaking for me only. It's important that I have a clear statement on what went on.
Sure.
I do not believe that every single person inside the Capitol was an Antifa member. What I believe is a significant number of agitators, whoever
Right.
they're
Who are they?
affiliated with, who are against Donald Trump, came to that crowd, spent a lot of time throughout the day scoping out the crowd. We saw them on radios. We heard them speaking code words.
Right.
I heard somebody say Anthony 1, Anthony 2, I'm on the right, and then an explosion went off. Could have been a coincidence. We heard somebody whistling the da-da-da-da-da-da
Right.
repeatedly like it was a message, a signal.
Right.
We saw a lot of guys wearing orange bandanas, orange hats, black bloc clothing, 20-year-old kids wearing all black with a Donald Trump hat, and they're pulling up fence posts and they're disrupting and just causing problems in ways that we've not seen anybody else in any of these other rallies do. And what I believe they did, Charles, is that they got the drunkest, the most rowdy, the most QAnon-loving people they could find, and they riled them up.
Right.
And one of these, someone even said, I was watching CNN, and this is why Lee Stranahan always says, it's important to watch these other things and see what they're saying. I don't believe CNN
Right.
necessarily, but they have things on there. And I noticed that they were talking to a guy wearing a QAnon shirt who said that there was one guy up at the front of the thing who most people were saying, no, don't break the
Right.
window, don't break anything. He said, whatever, I'm breaking it. And he smashed it, and then the mob rushed in.
Right.
Now, you made a lot of insightful comments about the mentality of crowds.
Right.
And I think there's a lot of people who have longstanding knowledge that when you get to a crowd that's sort of, at a
Fever
moment of
pitch,
tension, and then you pop it by breaking a window or something like that, that is how these mostly peaceful protests become riots.
Right.
And I think, I have to say, Charles, I think there's probably a lot of people who are associated with Black Lives Matter who don't know the Marxist roots, who have their own agenda that is positive, that they want equality and freedom and they want to right a wrong that they perceive, and they don't
Right.
necessarily want to be violent. But just as these selfish, mindless, anarchist, Antifa weirdos, whatever they are, infiltrated that movement and turned it violently destructive, I think they did the same exact thing on Wednesday.
I think that history will show that to be true. And we'll very quickly learn that this happened. You can't question it. Donald Trump wouldn't have resigned, or he wouldn't have done X, Y, and
Right.
Z if it hadn't happened. You cannot bring it up on the internet again,
Or you're banned.
or you're banned. Yeah. So here's Park Avenue and 82nd Street. And I think in the area below 96th Street, there are very few stores on Park Avenue. There's one that's out of business, Jay's Cleaners.
Well, nobody's going to work. They don't need dry cleaning anymore. I mean,
But
right?
this
That's-
is, the reason we moved up here is because my kids got into the school near here and were destined to go to schools further uptown. And it's just a lot easier to walk your kids to school than it is to take them on the subway. You got to go to school with them when they're young, and then you got to pick them up, and it's just a lot of toing and froing. It's actually quite beautiful when the city's normally in session, school's in session. You walk around here at say 7:45, 8 o'clock, and you see very frequently fathers escorting their young kids to the private schools, or nannies doing it. And sort of a very uplifting, hopeful scene in the morning. And, but now, those very same kids who probably 16 years ago, 18, 20 years ago, were walking up and down these streets and become trust fund babies. We're down there in Washington, D.C., and are probably at the rally we're going to go see.
with the skinny jeans,
With the skinny jeans and the scruffy beards and the stupid wool hats.
pulling the fence posts out of the ground.
Pulling, exactly.
And what were they going to do with that? They're going to use the posts to break the windows, or they're just... I mean, I said, don't do that. The kid said, why? Everybody who's seen that interaction says that kid had to be Antifa.
Right.
No Trump person that we've dealt with has ever
I think
acted
we got
like
it, green. So, yeah. So now, as you head east, as we're doing off of Park Avenue, the apartments are more modest. That's because in the old days, there used to be an elevated subway on 3rd Avenue, and the block 3rd Avenue up in this district just wasn't that nice. Since the L came down many years ago, buildings have been put up, modern buildings, and the whole character of this neighborhood is very different than it used to be, even in 1991 when I moved here.
Sorry to keep redirecting, Charles, but back on everything that's happening related to Wednesday, there was an amazing flood of false information coming in yesterday. And I mean, to me, it was obviously false. One of the ways I gauge this is that I get a huge amount of emails of the same type of thing. I think I want to call out some guilty parties right here.
Careful.
And they can contact me if I'm wrong, but I don't trust Ann Vandersteel at all. She's either extremely undiscerning or part of a crew that's trying to dish out false information.
Yeah.
There's also a lot of other, but not to single her out, there's other people too.
Yeah.
I was very disappointed with Sidney Powell, the number of times that I've contacted her with hard evidence, substantiated facts that show that Mary Fanning is a persistent liar and that Dennis Montgomery is a horrible witness. That's not my opinion. I say that because the guy's former attorney has said he's a con man. There's tons of cases that have already happened that will be brought right up by the defense to discredit the guy as a witness. And the fact that she would continue to submit affidavits that rely on his testimony shows such poor judgment that it needs an explanation, Sidney. So these people don't owe me any answers, but I'm asking these questions, and if they go unanswered, other people should ask themselves these questions as well. Because I've sent money to Sidney Powell, and at the beginning I thought she was doing the right thing, but now it seems that I don't understand. There's something I don't understand about what's going on in that whole entire campaign.
Right.
We saw Patrick Byrne put out all these videos that he and Sidney Powell and Mike Flynn were at the White House. They created this expectation that something would happen, that Sidney Powell would be named as the special counsel or special or whatever. But I mean, again, it comes back to this whole kind of QAnon idea where they create a figure, whether it's a real person or... Hang on a second, Charles. Sometimes we just get people who are walking down the street who have very loud, annoying voices, and it gets on the track, and that guy's one of them.
Yeah.
They want to create a person, an entity. They even said they were going to do this with Donald Trump, the Pied Piper approach, where they get everybody to follow someone or something. Then they discredit that someone or something, as they've just done with QAnon. Anyone associated with QAnon, any person who doesn't know what it is now pictures that weirdo with the Viking helmet and the pedo tattoo that everybody's going to tell me is a Viking symbol. But I don't care. It looks too much like the pedo symbol for any person who claims to be a QAnon follower to proudly display it. The guy would cover it up. If he had that there and then became a QAnon follower and saw that FBI declassified WikiLeaks released image, he would say, oh, everybody who's in my crew is going to see that and think it's a pedo thing. I'm not going to display it. Point is, they want to create these entities that they can get people to follow, discredit that entity, and then forever they can say, oh, that person was a QAnon follower, that person was a Sidney Powell donator, that person was a Donald Trump supporter, whatever.
Can I jump in here just because we're getting to the... We're going to walk past it and I won't be able to explain. So once we get by this nice shack here, which...
this is literally rooms in there, Charles.
Right.
It's an outdoor restaurant.
That's the building I used to live in.
Oh, nice.
And across the street now is this modern thing. That there used to be a great Chinese restaurant that we would go into every Sunday night. But they knocked a bunch of buildings down and put up this monstrosity.
Wow.
Where do we go?
This is disaster over here.
Let's go this way.
I mean, the reason I went on that tear, Charles, is because I want people to, I appreciate that people send me these things and ask me, do I think this is real? And I suspect that they're doing that because they suspect that it's not real. And that's the first step. I think anytime anybody sees or hears anything, their first question should be, well, how do I know that this is real? And if you have questions about could it be fake, could it be something that somebody just put out there and said,
It's probably not real.
well, just scrutinize it very carefully. People are telling me things like, oh, how can you say General McInerney is lying? He's been saying this for weeks. Well, I've been telling people he's been lying for weeks.
So on the corner of that new building going up used to be a whole bunch of brownstones. There used to be a bar in it called Martell's, which is one of the first bars that I went to as an underage
It's a huge
elementary
apartment
school
building
kid.
coming in up here.
What?
It's a huge apartment building coming in.
Yeah. But let's go. I'm going to tell a funny story here. We're going to go across. I met, once the noise gets down, I'll tell the story. When we moved up here, my daughter was very young. Yeah, I think she was pushing 5, maybe. And I may have that wrong, I think. No, she wasn't born. She was born. We moved here, and she was born 2 years later. And sort of 2 years after that, a nice couple moved in here, and they bought, I'll show you, this townhouse that we're going to come to. And I won't say the person's name to keep his keep his identity private, but this guy paid decent money for this thing right here, this brown thing.
201B?
The whole thing, yeah.
Wow, that's fancy.
And I'll tell you that he got it for less than $1 million, actually.
Wow, how
Yeah.
much is this worth now? 10 million?
I don't know. I honestly
5.
don't know. But he would go away for the weekend, and he would come back, and he comes back one day to find police everywhere and blocking the entrance to this townhouse that he owned. And he's like, "What the hell? I mean, I've got 3 young kids. I want to get into my townhouse. You can't do that. You got to wait."
Why?
Because Judge Mukasey had rented. They'd rented the one adjacent to him, and he was doing the first trial of the World Trade Center bombing, and he had protective detail. So my friend, might have liked to drink, and he let it subside, and he came back down later that night, and he took out his garden hose, and he just started spraying all the protective detail with the garden hose.
That doesn't seem like a good idea.
No, and so they broke down his door in the morning, and they arrested him and whatever, and the person who was leading the persecution of my friend was James Comey. And in the end, my friend beat James Comey at his game.
That's excellent. We got to talk about James Comey, but I want to address a comment here, and I think you're going to have commentary about it.
Sure.
Somebody's telling me to lighten up because the Insurrection Act is the new normal. Charles, what evidence have you seen that Donald Trump has invoked the Insurrection
None.
Act? And can you please address people who are sending around
Right.
an email along the lines of the stupidity I'm trying to describe that
Right.
says Donald Trump has signed the Insurrection Act?
Yeah, my understanding is the Insurrection Act was, I believe, passed long ago.
17 something
a
or
long
18
time ago,
something?
and the question is not did he sign it, the question is did he invoke it? Oh, those are just little kids.
With lacrosse sticks.
And how you invoke it would be spelled out in the act. I haven't read it recently, so I don't know. But I don't think we know. Well, we know that Donald Trump hasn't officially done much. We know he's supposed to go to Texas on Tuesday to look at the wall. Hang on. Let's let these guys go. Guys, eyes forward.
Where are your parents, kids?
Right here.
Why are you letting them almost crash into us? Why don't you take care of them and look after them so that
beat
they...
'em?
No, you should make sure that they're... I could do that to you if you want, but you should make sure they're not running into people on the street.
Let's go. Let's
Don't tell me what to do, lady. Watch your goddamn kids.
Take it easy. Take it easy.
Don't tell me what to do. Keep your eyes on the kids.
I'm not saying nothing. Get the sidewalk. Take it down.
Yeah, they shouldn't be riding those on the sidewalk at all.
Relax.
Don't tell me what to do, okay?
Let's just let it go. They're going to be stupid for the rest of their lives.
I'll
Just
bring
let it
my lacrosse stick next time.
go. But let it go, Jason.
I've had it with letting it go. Dude, I hope your kids get run over by a car. That'll teach you a lesson. You're too damn stupid to be procreating. Social Darwinism.
In an unrelated note, Jason, this is a nice restaurant. It was a nice restaurant. We're going to end up
Charles, that's it. No one takes personal responsibility. That guy thinks it's okay for his kids to ride around on scooters on the sidewalk, almost crashing into you. You know, there's somebody who that idiot's irresponsible kids are going to crash into. It's going to break their ankle and ruin their life.
Yeah. Let's go this way. So this is 2nd Avenue. I agree with you, but
What is that now? We got a motorcycle.
us?
We got somebody doing wheelies or something on a motorcycle. It's one of that guy's kids 20 years from now. Oh, no, sorry. It's a Lamborghini.
It's all right. That's a nice pink.
That
What
is
is
an
that?
insane thing right there.
Lamborghini. Pink Lambo. So this is 2nd Avenue where there are a ton of restaurants. I'm amazed they're still in business. Frankly. More activity here than you see in the Greenwich Village right now.
It's interesting, isn't it?
And then there are a lot of places that are gone, like the craft beer place over there across the street, the Cocktail Lounge. We're headed up to 86th Street, and then we're going to hang a Roscoe. Head east, young man.
We're doomed, Charles.
What?
I said, we're doomed. We just got a city full of idiots.
Yeah. Yep.
Look at all these people.
This is, I think Elaine's used to be around here. Famous restaurant. I got kicked out of Elaine's once.
Wow, for what?
I was with these friends of mine and they insisted on having pizza before we went in. And I wasn't thinking clearly. We walked into Elaine's eating slices of pizza. Elaine did not like that.
Isn't that where Woody Allen plays the...
Yeah, I think that's where Carrick used to hang out. Elaine died, and I think it's gone now.
It was in that Billy Joel song, Big Shot.
Really?
Yeah.
And I went in there like maybe 2 years after that, and Elaine recognized me and kicked me out again.
Wow.
It's like,
That's funny.
what's the crime? Slice of pizza, give me a break.
I respect that woman's right to throw out anybody that irritates her. That's how I run the chat room. And I just... Charles, my patience ran out in February 2020,
Yeah,
and there wasn't much to begin with.
you're depleted. Oh, there's Dorian's Red Hand. That's where I met Sam Nunberg.
But isn't that where, what's his name, killed somebody?
It is. Let's cross the street.
What was his name?
The guy
Robert
foraging in the garbage next to you. Robert
preppy
Chalmers
killer-
or something like that.
Chambers,
Chambers, yeah. This is where I met Sam Nunberg, who...
And there's another Taco Bell, Charles. There's a lot of
Well, there are
Taco
a lot
Bells
of them.
opening.
Yeah, we'll go up to 86th.
So what were we talking about before I yelled at that idiot and his idiot spawn?
Spawns, plural, or whatever, spawn. Well, I think we were talking about the need to be discerning as we think through what really happened in Washington, D.C. Just to help people with the math, NBC, the idiots, were saying there are only 5,000 people.
They still refer to it as tens of thousands of people
Yeah,
descended on
yeah.
Washington, D.C. It was,
It was
easily over 1 million.
Yeah, I would say I would put the range at 500,000 to 1.5 million, something like that, if I had to guess.
And it could be more. We didn't even necessarily see all the people.
And we remember that Donald Trump's first, as president, big fracas was over whether his crowd size was bigger than Obama's. So we're back on crowd size again. But when you, just as somebody experiencing it, and then looking at it from on high at the Washington Monument, looking down below, I think experts would probably bracket the number 500,000 to 1.5 million as a guess. I don't think it certainly wasn't 10 million.
Not 10 million, but it could have been 2.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm telling you, when I compare it to the only time I ever recall seeing a number of people that huge, where someone said, here's the number, was that Kenny Chesney concert where they said the stadium is 120,000 people. And I looked out at 120,000 people, and what we saw the other day was 5 to 10 times that amount.
So let's take 1 million just to make the math easy. The number of people who were inside the Capitol, either inside or who had broken in to the building,
Right.
is certainly less than 1,000.
I think they said they arrested something like,
60.
yeah.
Right. Well, let's say it's less than 1,000. Let's call it 1,000. 1,000 over 1 million is 0.1%.
Ah.
99, just like COVID. 99.9% of the folks who attended that protest did not breach the interior of the building.
Or even disrupt the Capitol at all.
That's almost 100%. Just as in the case of COVID, 99.9% of the people who've gotten it have survived with minimal problems. So,
Well, but isn't it interesting, though, that the entire thing is condemned and every person who supports Trump now needs to be shunned, whereas when Black Lives Matter burns and destroys and kills multiple people, businesses, etc., well, that's a mostly peaceful protest that these people are just exercising their right.
right. Well, the whole argument falls apart on its face, right? You're supposedly progressive. You're thinking for the greater good. You're protecting minorities. And instead, what you're really doing here, if you accept my numbers as being right, you're persecuting the minority. The 1,000 who got in the bill. You're not going to persecute them. You're going to throw the full, if somebody broke into, say, the Capitol over the Kavanaugh hearing, which did happen,
Right.
Women did all that. I mean, I don't see anybody going back there and saying, what percentage of the people
Well, what,
who
did
were
they arrest
milling
any
around-
of them for banging on the door like that?
right, they occupied the Capitol for a long period of time.
No. I mean, when the Kavanaugh, didn't they go and bang on the door?
Of his house, you mean? Or?
No. Inside where they were voting,
yeah.
there was a bunch of people who came and.
Right.
So why is that okay?
Because I think the real goal of this movement is not to be right on an issue. It's to destroy the integrity of this country, to destroy it from within.
It's working, Charles.
And it is working. It used to be that you had people on the left and people on the right who understood that we're all Americans, and that when the President of the United States traveled outside America, you would not protest his policies, which is something, of course, the left has never done with regard to Trump. Every time Trump went on a foreign mission, the left found an excuse to try to humiliate him. Wow, this is all
Yeah, what is going on here?
de Blasio at work, turning, these are probably old buildings knocked down and turned into a new building site. That looks like it's going to be knocked down over there.
Yeah, definitely.
So again, we're now heading to the far east side,
The far east side, it's like China.
which is over here is a very residential area up on East End Avenue and York Avenue and First Avenue. These big apartment buildings. There are a number of high-end schools over in this area. And it has a very different feel and flavor all the way over here. You don't see as many restaurants. You could almost
There's no
be.
subway really that comes.
I don't
over here.
think this far east. There's a Second
A
Avenue
lot of
subway.
bus users over here.
Yeah.
I had a friend who used to live way up here on York Avenue, and it was just so inconvenient.
Now, this is first. We're not even.
I know York is an East End and everything.
And in the old days, the days of yore, there was a big brewery, I think on 80
Wow,
Rupert Brewery that.
that's perfect for the drinking game, you know.
What's
This
that?
used to be a brewery.
Oh, right, exactly. And so long as it was there and then falling down, it just wasn't practical to build a fancy apartment building. But they ultimately knocked it down and have put up a whole bunch of buildings. And there'll be more and more of these buildings.
Right.
Theory.
So, what do you think about Nancy Pelosi claiming that she's contacting the Joint Chiefs of Staff to tell them not to?
Well, is she taking her orders from the Galactic Council over there in Mars? I mean,
Charles, look at this email. Can you see that? From Periscope Twitter technical support.
Wow.
Your account. Oh no, wait. That's Twitter support. It looks like my account.
Is
I don't know.
disabled?
It's Periscope. They're saying your account has been permanently banned.
Really?
This will not be reversed. Thanks, Periscope.
Thank you,
But they
Twitter.
don't tell me what.
When that just happened?
That happened this morning when I was trying to put this show out on Periscope. So that's yet another social media channel gone. No more Facebook, no more Periscope. I guess Twitter is coming next. I am on Parler at CS The Truth, but we've heard now that sometime today, Amazon Web Services is taking that down.
Yeah.
I mean, again, I think
And I'm just, if I jump in, I'm on Parler at the same handle as I had on Twitter, at Charles Ortel, and I had done a few odd tweets. As some people may know, tomorrow's my birthday. I'm expecting I'll get a
happy
few.
birthday, Charles.
It's okay, thank you. And I'm way past the age where I celebrate a birthday. But So I'm leaving it open. Maybe I get banned today, but if I don't, I'm leaving it open through
Happy
the 11th.
birthday from Twitter.
That's
You're
happy,
banned.
happy fucking birthday. You're canceled.
Charles, how does anything in the United States work where you're just arbitrarily banned for a reason that we won't tell you? There's no appeal. There's no opportunity to know who has accused you of whatever, to confront your accusers. It's fundamentally un-American.
I think this creates a gigantic opportunity for the Trump family or whoever else wants to do this with the money. You would need to
More than
lay
money
aside.
is the problem. These guys have been building these platforms for 20
Again,
years.
the mistake they made is they allowed people to have anonymous users, and the anonymous users' information, I would argue, is worth nothing. But if you said you cannot be anonymous on our platform, we're not going to kick you off unless you do A,
Something
B, C,
illegal,
D, and E.
Right.
You know, and we will give you a warning. Sometimes people unfairly accuse others. Sometimes people will sign into an account somehow, you know,
to
using
do
your
something right.
right. We will. There'll be procedures.
Transparent
But
appeal process.
And then, in the agreement with the user, which is something that I would argue should be done retrospectively now with Twitter and Yahoo, and Gmail, and all this, you should be forced as the operator to say, here's how we make money off of you. All right, we're going to give you this free service, but understand that the minutes that you spend on here, images, videos, or whatever, build the value of you to our advertisers.
Right.
And we are going to monetize what you do, and here's how we're going to split it. 100% to us, 0 to you.
Right.
All right.
I think the secret is that was never their intention. Their intention was to do exactly what they're doing now. Supplant television, supplant newspapers, and then control the message. And that is what they have done.
Right.
To me, the notion that Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, whoever is running Google at this moment, have the ability to stifle and silence the President of the United States is so
It's outrageous.
dangerous and such a wrong message to go to anyone. It absolutely cannot end like this.
Well, and I don't know if you know that, or you noticed that at the same time that Trump has now been permanently banned from many places, the phrase "hang Mike Pence"
Was allowed to trend.
is trending, which means it's among the top most used or shared. I mean, how is it reasonable to say that whoever uses that should be allowed on Twitter, but Donald Trump should be kicked off? And I'm sorry, there's certain things you can do that you can never change my mind. And Twitter is dead to me. Facebook is dead to me. Apple is dead to me. I was going to buy some Apple shares because I thought there's an argument.
They're just,
dead.
It's Tim Cook is the problem. They've
I don't
got to
care.
get rid of Tim
No,
Cook.
it's a culture.
You're right.
It's a culture at Apple, and it's dead to me.
But that's not Steve Jobs. I mean, the technology is so good. I mean, everything I do is... And then what are we going to use? Google? How is that any better? That's the thing. We're trapped in this technological world where we're now under their control. That's the technocracy.
For now, but I think just as these things spread like wildfire, I think well-capitalized startups, particularly, remember Trump has 75 million followers, voters minimum, and around the world, who knows how many people, 75 million American voters, and around the world, who knows how many people love Trump and loathe the technocrats. So I think he could basically, or his family could replicate or come up with a better version. It would take a while, but he has the money and he has the real estate, frankly. He doesn't need to pay a rent to somebody else. He's probably got vacant stuff, and he could start from scratch.
I would prefer to see him do something in the next 10 days while he still holds the power of the presidency.
Oh, of course.
Whereby, like, I mean, if the FBI can bust into Roger Stone's house or
Right.
Jerry Corsi's house or any of the ridiculous, outrageous crap the FBI has done in the 75 years it's been around, why can't Donald Trump, as the commander-in-chief of the military, just like they invaded the sovereign country of Pakistan to snatch Osama bin Laden because he was a terrorist and an enemy of the people of the United States,
Right.
according to them,
Yeah.
why don't they just get the Marines or the Navy SEALs or Special Forces to fast rope tonight down into Jack Dorsey's house, Mark Zuckerberg's house, arrest these guys. Mike Bloomberg, arrest them for supporting these terrorist organizations. If they name Antifa a terrorist organization and these guys allow them to operate on their networks.
And here's somebody moving on. As we approach the protest, just because we might get jumped. I mean,
Imminently.
not jump, but we might have to switch focus. I just want to address the Paul Sperry stuff
Yes.
that came out for a second.
Yes,
Now,
yes.
that's important. So apparently Paul Sperry has somehow gotten emails among Comey, Shane Harris, the Wall Street Journal, now Washington Post reporter, and Ben Wittes.
He said they were declassified.
Right. And this covers 2016 and 2017, the very period where Peter Smith was ramping up an attempt to get the missing emails and then involving me in conversations, just keep me up to date. I was more focused on the Clinton Foundation, but nonetheless we had extensive conversations. These are finally being released. They weren't released when there was the Horowitz investigation. They weren't released a long time ago, so they're clearly damaging, and there's clearly more of them. And as people try to look at them, we may go right down a rabbit hole where Biden does get in and everything gets destroyed. But to the extent that doesn't happen, I think we need to remember that the FBI operates a system called Sentinel, where you're supposed to put all this information into it. And we've learned from other work that basically there are these conventions where people decide, well, this is so sensitive, maybe we shouldn't put it into the system because we wouldn't want anyone to find out the truth.
Yeah.
I mean, this is this whole, what Paul is breaking is, I think, quite interesting. I really hope that the president and his team stops talking and starts releasing the info. This is what
I've had it with releasing
they
info.
just
They
said
got to
about it.
arrest people.
Yeah, all right, in addition to doing that, but I want to see the info because I want to try to put it together
Right.
with what I know. But the point here, though, is that Giuliani was on Bannon's show saying just that. You're hearing the yelling.
Well, just and also real quick on what you're saying, you know, this is kind of interesting that Ben Wittes was coming out so hard, threatening me with his lawyer. By the way, Ben, someone could text this to Ben Wittes. Your criminal defense attorney failed to contact me. Can you send me her number? I'll reach out to her.
Right. So we see, I think this is the protest we're coming up on it here in Carl Schurz Park.
I've never been to this park before, Charles.
It's
We're
very
in
nice.
A less traveled area of New York City. Look at that atrium up there on top of this place.
Yeah, I was over there. Who's that famous actor? Oh my God, he was married to a much older guy who married an Italian woman and had to get divorced.
I don't know.
Oh, the name will come to me, but he was having this intense attempted makeup session with her up in here in the park on a bench. It was like he'd obviously gotten caught cheating or something, and didn't end well for him. So here, let's try not to get.
No, we're not going to get into any fights here.
Yeah. And
it looks
Gracie
peaceful.
Mansion, where the mayor in theory lives, is over there, that big building.
Oh, we should check that out too. But see, why are they all wearing black?
Do you want to walk up there and then back down?
Sure.
And that way we can sort of case it out. Good, it's pretty sparsely attended.
Yeah, I mean, I think that the real heavy marching was happening earlier in the day, but for people who are asking me, there is no doubt in my mind that there were marches and protests and things going on. NYPD was there. Charles, if NYPD was at the Capitol yesterday, that event would never have happened. That's the other thing that we need to address is that
Right.
the U.S. Capitol Police, after my, sort of 4 years of interacting with them on various things, are at best incompetent and more likely totally corrupt. Because
Yeah.
if you bring them evidence of crime, they give it to the criminal's defense attorney rather than to the prosecution.
Right.
And if you set them to guard the Capitol building, which is like their one function, they let rioters in.
Right.
And you and I were there identifying, well, gee, the cops aren't really doing anything. Now, this decision to do a walk today happened in response to what appeared to be a huge number of Antifa and Black Lives Matter people roaming around. But we had originally planned to be in the studio, and
Sure.
I had prepared a lot of video clips for us to go over. Not just stuff from the video that we shot on Wednesday, but people have been sending me clips and people have been posting clips. And I've gotten some clips that I don't think have gone out, just from right at the front lines of exactly where we were, but much, much closer to the building.
Really?
And the police were shooting tear gas at
They
the
were?
crowd. But I have to I reiterate that it's what we observed. It wasn't enough tear gas to disperse the crowd.
Right.
It was like one or two little, I don't understand, why didn't they fire just 20, 30, 50 canisters of tear gas and clear out the whole lawn?
I don't know. Is this Gracie Mansion? I don't think it
I don't know.
can't be,
It doesn't look like it.
because it's so easily accessible. Do you want to walk to the river and back? Or?
Well, let's just see what it is. There's cops there. It could be Gracie Mansion.
I wouldn't think they'd let you get that close.
Whose house is it?
I don't know. But here we are. This is
If we see Bill de Blasio, I can't guarantee that I'm not going to get into an argument.
good. Let's stay away from that house. I think that is Gracie Mansion. I could be wrong.
I think it is.
And there you see the East River. It wasn't Anthony Hopkins. There was another guy like that, the actor. What the hell is it? Name will come to me.
Zero Mostel?
Not Cyril Mostel. He would always play like he was an Oscar-winning, very famous actor.
I don't know. Sir Laurence Olivier? He's not Italian.
No, the name I'll get the name eventually.
Charles, from a weather standpoint, it's a beautiful day.
It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood, and
I think it is Gracie Mansion.
there you go. I'm actually amazed that you can get as close to it.
I've never been up here before.
Yeah, I have.
It's nice that we're taking people to parts of the city that are so not often traveled. I hope that people who enjoy the show will become sponsors by going to subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Going to Washington, D.C. and all that stuff and carrying on with the show takes time, costs money, and I know people like watching it, so I hope that they'll become sponsors. Wow, a lot of
So here we
fast-moving
have
water.
the river. I guess that's a ferry. I don't know where it goes to, but
Yeah, I have no idea.
and I
Where's
think
Hart Island, Charles?
what was that over there? Was that Bellevue or was that? Or
I think that
what is
might
it? It looks
be
like a
Hart-
prison complex, doesn't
It
it?
might be Hart Island. Like it's one of these tiny little islands out here that's like you can't really get to unless you have a boat.
Yeah.
What's that over there? That might be it.
I don't know, but you see that modern building. That's clearly a residential place, and it probably extolled the virtues of the view of the water
Right.
and this. You're like, just don't look the other way.
Right.
Don't ask how we're gonna get out of here.
Right.
Anyway, so let's walk
Well,
along.
here, this will tell us if it's Gracie Mansion
All right.
or maybe that over there. City of New York.
Wonder what kind of trees those are. Nice.
This is the type of thing I know nothing about.
Yeah, that's a big mansion.
It's also just so odd to have a house like that just here in the middle of the city.
It's nice, actually. I mean, it's probably
Yeah.
ancient.
I don't know anything about the history of Gracie Mansion. I guess you can't go in there.
I don't even think de Blasio lives in it. I think
Really?
he lives in his place in Brooklyn.
Huh.
I think
So what
he
is-
has either one or two townhouses in Brooklyn.
How did he ever earn any money being the dope
You don't
he is?
earn money. Just steal it. Yeah, I'm guessing this is it. So let's
Can
enter.
we see over the fence? Probably
no,
not.
no, no.
Honestly, my ideal setup.
All right.
Let's
Do you know if this is Gracie Mansion?
Yes, it is.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cute dog. Well, so yeah, I mean, I guess this was just a reconnaissance mission to see if they were there. There's a food drive going on right now. Whoops. Food drive going on right now, put on by, I guess, Black Lives Matter.
We'll go over to that.
Yeah, we should have brought a can of food. And I don't know.
No, we should go to it and take the food.
Nah.
I'm not teasing, of course. You know.
Charles, it's a very upsetting time.
That's a friend of mine. I think I've told the story before, but people may not remember it. That this friend of mine, he used to walk around Millbrook with a black T-shirt with white letters saying, "Beatings will stop when morale improves." He's the first person I was ever involved in a lawsuit. He was representing the stewardesses who lost their jobs at Western Airlines.
For what?
when I sold the business to Delta and as an agent. And anyway,
They sued you?
they sued Dylan Reed and in essence me. I had to testify. Anyway, we beat his ass. And you would think that I wouldn't like somebody like that, but actually he was really funny and good-natured about getting his ass kicked. And so we developed this friendship. And I wouldn't classify him as right or left. He's an independent thinker, and he's very wealthy in his own right. He's made a lot of money as a lawyer, actually, taking on tough cases. And he lives on the Upper West Side, and he had another kid, a young kid, I won't say the kid's name, and they were in this park watching their respective kids, and this guy who was bemoaning inequality and wanted high taxes and all this kind of stuff started getting into an argument with my friend. So my friend said, excuse me. He goes over to the other guy's little kid and he just takes his fire truck or takes his toy. He says, that's mine now. And the kid starts yelling and screaming and the parent is like, what are you doing? What do you think you're doing? It's just what you do.
Right.
All right, you don't like this? Then
Yeah.
don't perpetrate it on the country.
Right. It's interesting that you bring that up, Charles, because little kids are a good gauge. I noticed when I was walking up here to meet you, a number of little kids with the masks on, walking in front of their parents,
Right,
pulled down.
right.
Because little kids know that should not be there, and they just do what they want, right? Until you tell them don't do that.
Big kids too.
Right. But I mean, it just was very telling to me to see, and this wasn't like some kind of troublemaking kid. It was just like this
Right.
innocent little, tiny little child with the, look at that dog standing up. He wants a better view. Oh, he just went down. Well, I don't know. It just stuck out in my mind for some reason.
Yeah. So this is expensive real estate here. It's nice to have a park like this for kids to run around in. Many of the most exclusive private schools are quite within close walking distance to here.
What's the name of this park again?
Carl Schurz Park.
Who is that guy?
I don't know.
But he gets a park.
Big in the cleaning business.
Yeah. Starch or no starch?
Yeah, I'd say this is a less energetic BLM rally than you get down at Union Square or Washington Square Park.
Well, it looked like this morning was when it was all happening, and I mean, I didn't know about it, so people can see it on Twitter. A lot of people were asking me, but I mean,
Well, and when you didn't even know about
I
it.
didn't know it was happening, and I mean, it was way uptown, the videos that I saw, and they had happened hours before, so like chasing that kind of thing around is...
But you, a lifelong New Yorker, didn't even know about this park, so
Right.
So
It's a big city.
it is. So it doesn't seem
Yeah,
at
I
the
don't think I even
moment
want to
terribly
talk to any of these
acrimonious.
people. But it's good to see that it's going on. I mean, here's the other thing I want to say, Charles. Notice they're doing this. Do you see a lot of counter-protesting Trump fans here trying to disrupt
No.
this? Right.
Cop watch.
So, I mean, it would be interesting if, you know, if they would have just let everybody do their event in Washington, D.C. without disrupting it to
Right.
see what would have happened. That would have
Bring
been
socks
nice.
and gloves.
You guys are outside and I'm just walking around. You have to say something?
Let's just let it go. You
Yeah,
can't
shut up.
Can't fix stupid.
They just can't let you walk by without saying this.
Jason, we're
Fuck
out.
you all! Look at all these people. Look at all these people.
Jason, Jason, we're outnumbered,
I
man.
walk by, you assholes start a problem. Back the fuck up! Back up!
Get the fuck out of here.
You see how this works, people? Everybody see this?
Pants, buddy.
What the fuck, you Nazi?
Stay on your side, is what he said. You fucking criminal assholes! You all will be the first to go down when this nation falls. Get the fuck back there! Yeah,
Well, let's just.
I'm standing here with no weapons. You got 17 people over there, and I'm the pussy.
Let's just leave.
You so scared? You so scared? You so scared? I got your face.
Back away,
Don't worry,
assholes.
I'm masked. I'm
Back
not
away.
you.
Are they right there?
Don't be following us.
Then go the fuck home.
Fucking maniacs. I'm a fascist bitch. I walk by, we said nothing.
Right.
They said wear a mask. They agitate. This is how these criminal fucks operate.
Jason, keep your voice down in front of the kids.
I walked by, you stupid assholes! Stop following me! Because it's fucking America and I'm still allowed to do what I want. Why are you following me? Fuck off, you two idiots! Fuck off, you too, you fat bitch!
Watch your fucking mouth.
Fuck you!
Watch your fucking mouth. Watch your fucking
Stay in your goddamn park! Yeah, that's why you got a mask on, bitch! Watch these maniacs. He's about to throw something.
Don't.
Back up!
Just leave it be.
I want people to see how this works. We walk through a park, they agitate, they follow. I want you to get the fuck out of here, you stupid bitch. I didn't say shit until you idiots started agitating.
So do we.
So do we. Shut up and stop. Excuse me, I dropped something.
You dropped that.
Yeah, so I'm gonna pick it up and stay away from me. Stay away from us.
Both of these
Proud
You
boy.
have no
You guys
reason
are all
to say
stupid
that.
idiots.
Oh, we're stupid idiots. We're stupid idiots. So you record people that can't record you?
Random, you fucking dumbass.
I'm walking around New York City doing what I want. Stop talking to me.
Hey, calling us fucking dumbasses?
Back up! You stay the fuck away from me! I'm not
Okay,
trying to
let's-
scare
let's
anybody,
go.
you assholes. I was walking through a park until you started agitating.
Let's just go over here on this side of the garbage. Here, Jason.
Stop advancing on me, you fat bitch!
Let's, Jason.
Back up!
All right.
Back away from me. Just get the hell away from me,
Let's go,
all of you.
Jason. Let's go.
Why are you following me? You got my face, you got my face.
Jason, we're outnumbered, okay? I want to turn 65 tomorrow.
Sorry, Charles.
All right?
They're not going to do a damn thing.
Now they're not.
They weren't going to at all. People see how they operate, and this is exactly what happened on Wednesday. They agitate. I got you on video. Good, go show it to the cops. They'll see we're walking through the park. You assholes have got to have something to say to start a problem.
Yeah, we have it totally on tape, and they instigated it.
Charles, these are the people who are going to cause the civil war you were talking
Right.
about. They're ignorant. They're violent.
But they had, that one guy had a skateboard that he was getting ready
Well,
to
of course,
use.
he was going to do something. He was
Yeah.
going to try to do something, but
Well-
he knows we're rolling camera.
Then we'll go to
The cops were right there. They didn't do a damn thing.
Well, they did say,
They didn't
Go-
do a damn thing. Those people followed us down the street. If they had gotten out of the car and told them, stay on your side, do your protest, people see how it works. When we do a Trump protest, we don't agitate Antifa people who are walking away.
right,
We walked through there and they said, where's your mask? We're outside. I don't need to wear a mask.
right,
They need to shut up and mind their own damn business.
right. But then you get, this guy was with him. Then you end up,
Yeah, this guy.
That's-
This
he's
guy's an
illegal.
Antifa punk.
Like-
And he's a bitch. And he's going to grow up in a country that's ruined by him and idiots like him.
And you won't be.
Where are your parents, you idiot? They're ashamed of you.
That's good to know.
Say again?
Wear a fucking mask, you asshole.
Oh, yeah?
Jason, please, just let him go. He'll be stupid for the rest of his life. And you know, he probably hasn't, and our audience may not have read the book Dupes by Paul Kengor. But Paul wrote, a famous historian, not necessarily a conservative, wrote a book explaining that it's idiots like that kid and the kids who we were interacting with just now who are used by the hard left communists.
Right, because he's an idiot.
Yeah, they're used. He's so proud of himself now. You know,
I told somebody to wear a mask.
let's not interact with him
None of
again,
his
okay?
business to tell me to wear a mask.
Let's not get into it again. Leave him be. Let's go that way.
Go get hit by a bus, you fucking douche.
You know, but there's the police.
Yeah, they're doing nothing.
But you see, you saw how that worked. When they got close to us, they noticed we were white, and they immediately say, "You're Proud Boys, you're
Of course,
racist."
that's the racists.
Yeah, we're the racists. Interesting.
I denounce the Proud Boys. I do not like their tactics. I don't think that vigilante violence is the answer.
Right.
And by the way, the one time I interacted with the Proud Boys, they were just as much jerks to me as any Black Lives Matter person ever has been.
Yeah. Well, going from a semblance of a republic to mob rule is not what we signed up for. Right? We don't want mob rule, whether it's on the right or
We
on
have
the left.
that. We have it, Charles.
We have mob disrule, mob anarchy.
That police car should have pulled up to that altercation. An officer should have come out and said, "Get back in your park," and let them walk away.
Well-
They allowed those guys to follow us, increasing the risk that something would happen, and then they'd tell us to call 911.
Well,
the NYPD is totally ineffective.
Right, but the step that we fortunately evaded is them throwing a punch and either you or I fighting back. And that's when 25 people
right, of
would swarm
course,
us.
and that's what I wasn't going to do.
Yeah.
That's what they were trying to agitate, because they know. They want the video of, you know, if they look bad on the video, then it's not good for them.
Right.
Now they'll cut out pictures of me calling that fat girl a fat bitch.
Yeah.
And anybody who's out there and fat, I'm sorry, improve your health. I'm not fat shaming anybody, but
I could lose weight.
well, then do it. But
will.
I mean, you know, that fat bitch, you're not screaming at me on the street.
Yet. But yeah, that's a sad commentary to contrast that interaction
Right.
with 5 hours down in Washington,
Right.
D.C. And Trump is accused of leading a riot, whereas these idiots
Are causing one.
are causing one. And Trump doesn't say, all right, every Democrat, every pundit has to disavow those idiots who just tried to swarm us.
Well, haven't they been on TV a million times talking about how if you see a Trump supporter, get in their face?
Right.
So that could have easily just erupted into you and I getting hit on the head with a skateboard, going to the
still could.
hospital and dying. Would Maxine Waters be impeached? Would
Right.
all these Democrat idiots, Joe Biden, who says Antifa's not a thing?
Joe Biden says his son is the smartest person he knows.
Charles, we are so doomed.
Yeah, so back on this Paul Kengor book, Kengor, really worth reading it. Because when you do, I forget if it was you or somebody else was talking to me about, I think it was the folks in Norway, were saying, you know, let's go back to BLM riots and back to 2015 when Trump announced, and let's examine that period. You really have to go far more deeply back into history. This has been going on for a long time. The idea, in England there was something called the Great Levelers, the Leveler movement, make everybody the same. That was back in 1600s, 1500s, late
Is that
1500s.
like the precursor to Fabians?
I don't know about that, but if you go even further back into Roman history, there have been, or Greek history, there was somebody, I think called Procrustes, whose idea was to make everybody the same height. What? What?
I just thought somebody was following us.
Make everybody the same height by taking a tall person and cutting off their feet.
What?
Just absurd crap. And so it's an old idea that somebody who doesn't have, let's say, assets or a role holds himself out as the fairest person in the country or location and angles him or herself into the position of, let me be the arbiter of all these, let me be the decision maker, I'll settle everything. So you have people like that, and you have people like me who just want to be left the fuck
Right.
alone.
We were just walking through that park, minding our own business, and they agitated. This is what this group does all the time. When you look at that video from Wednesday, Charles, it is analogous to everything we saw all summer. It is a stark contrast to anything that has happened at any Trump rally demonstration before. If there was going to be if what happened at Staten Island at that pub with those sheriffs standing there were a Black Lives Matter thing, every single one of those sheriffs would have been beaten down and firebombed.
Yep.
Because scumbags like that
Right.
are running it.
Now let's go, what I'd like to do here is go across 81st Street, which we'll see how many of the quaint stores and restaurants that used to be here remain. And then let's go down Lex. We haven't gone down Lex yet.
Sure.
And see how long this walk can last. That's the alternative grocery store to the one that's right there on 82nd and 3rd, just to come over here. This concrete jungle used to be, 50 years ago, used to be run down tenements and stuff. And then a lot of the bought, knocked down, and up came these buildings. In the winter, the wind whips up these avenues. It can be really, really cold. But yeah, back on that altercation. It was the woman started it.
Of course.
That woman just noticed us. What did she say about filming?
She said, "Don't film."
So she said something about you can't film our faces.
Yeah, why you got to film faces, right? And I said, "I'm just outside filming us."
Right.
And she's like, "Where's your mask?" It's like, look, all of you, shut up and mind your own business. It's amazing that they're busy calling me a coward and they're the ones who are covering their faces.
Well, they were trying to incite you.
Of course.
And they beat the crap out of both
But
of us.
I mean, it's quite interesting that this whole, we now have a society where you could walk around with a hat, sunglasses, a helmet, a beanie, and a face covering and, shoot somebody on camera. How would they know who it is?
Well, they did it. Somebody shot that person in the Capitol building. We still don't know who did it
Well,
and why.
they said it was a Capitol Police
We don't
officer
know that.
who's on administrative leave. I think the Capitol Police said that.
Yeah, as I said.
That's been reported. You're right, we don't know that. I called the public information. I found out something very interesting about the Capitol Police yesterday, Charles. So I've made many calls to the public information officer for the Capitol Police. I forget her name, Laura something. She's never answered the phone. She's never returned an email. She's never returned a voicemail. She's never returned a message that I've left with other Capitol Police officers who assured me that they would give it to her. And when I asked the Capitol Police officer who answered the phone, are there any other armed security inside the Capitol who aren't Capitol Police, he expressly refused to answer. And I said, why? And he just said, I won't answer. You can speak to the public information officer. And I said, but she never answers. And that was it. Just wouldn't say anything. So I found out, do you know who runs the U.S. Capitol Police, Charles?
No.
Congress.
Oh.
And the U.S. Capitol Police, unlike other police departments around the country, are specifically exempt from freedom of information requests.
Of course.
So, I mean, that is a corrupt police force run by Congress that let a bunch of leftist terrorist maniacs, who we just saw a small faction of, let them into the Capitol to do this. They capitalized on the stupidest QAnon following Trump supporters among us, got them all whipped into a frenzy, thought it would be a great idea to smoke pot and steal property
Careful.
and wreck the place. And of course that's a crime. That's not the way that you win. I mean, these people think that they're taking back the nation by breaking into Congress with a cell phone. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard.
Well, so you were saying something about, what are you doing?
They're not susceptible to freedom of
No,
information.
you were talking
requests.
about Nancy Pelosi, I think at one point. An hour back or so.
Well-
And I made some comment about the Intergalactic Council and never finished the thought.
Well, the FBI released information about her father. Apparently, I saw
Right.
somebody put out a tweet alleging that her brother had gang raped somebody. Could
He's
have been
dead,
a part
the
of a
brother,
gang
too.
raping somebody. I mean, I guess they're trying to say, like, this is what she's all about.
Brilliant. Thanks for blocking the street.
Yeah, blocking the thing, not looking, on the cell phone as we cross the street.
Come on.
Drive me home.
Block the sidewalk too.
Why,
Why not?
why do those people feel that outside in a park they are supposed to instruct me to wear a mask?
Can't fix stupid, Jason.
But this is what they always go to, these Antifa people. Give me 6 feet. Where's your mask? They love to say that stuff.
Right.
You know, this is, I trust.
We were more than 6 feet away from them.
Of course.
You know.
And also, what I'm doing, it has nothing to do with them.
Right. Well, it's not clear from if you look at the camera, they can't see that you're not filming them.
Even if I was, don't be out in public if you don't want people to do that. I'm
Right.
allowed to run a camera in public.
Now here we have a delightful neighborhood with the garbage stacked here and the dead Christmas trees everywhere. Not a fire risk.
But you know what is going to happen is now George's brother has publicly announced that he wants to find people who get into these videos and then get them to claim that they don't want to be on the video, and that's going to will tick a box on YouTube where they can strike the video. So people might have to watch us in the future on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth and patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. And as a matter of fact, the more people who become sponsors and do that, the less effective any kind of action people like that taking will have. But George's brother has publicly announced that that's what he wants to do, to destroy this channel, to take some of this historic footage offline. Why would he want to do that? I think that they are part of this movement, Charles, that they are the online version who are here to attenuate our signal and stop this message from getting out, just the same way they want to stop the president from having any opportunity to say anything, because if the counter message can't get out, then their fake news message is all that more effective.
Well, I think it's rather suspicious that the first time I met George was the first time Shane Harris called me.
That is rather suspicious. It's
Now, this
also
place,
rather
yeah,
suspicious.
Quattro Gazzi is a great restaurant. I'm glad it's still open. Have you ever eaten here?
Nah, I didn't even know about it.
It's really good. It's like Monty's,
4 cats.
but it's very good.
Charles, there's a lot of strange things about George and his
Go up to
brother
Lex.
and everybody that I've met.
Well, we'll
through
go down
them.
to 79th, actually. Then,
Whatever you want to do.
just to show people the neighborhood.
I think it's also strange that Chris Boozy, who is a contributor to the Lawfare blog, he became so interested in me and what I was saying when I was trying to press Ben Wittes to answer the question of why he doesn't want to look at evidence that really strongly suggests that Peter Smith was murdered. And it seems to me that when somebody resists looking at that evidence, they either don't want to know the truth, or they already know it and they know that the evidence is not helpful
Right.
to them. I think it's also interesting that Chris Boozy is super aggressively promoting Michael Cohen's podcast. What do you think of that?
Michael Cohen and Anthony Scaramucci, these people who are passionate supporters of Trump and now passionate enemies of Trump, have no credibility whatsoever.
But see, but I'm saying that's the move. They want to get somebody like this is what they were trying to do with Quinn Michaels. They get somebody embedded with you. Either they come to you as someone who's going to double cross you in the first place,
Right.
or they see, oh, wait a minute, this person's a good target. They have a drug addiction or a felony or
Right.
some kids and they need money, or they find that weakness and they press on it until they can get you to turn. And then what they want to do is they want to say, oh, this person's now going to be a whistleblower. So in Trump's case, that's Michael Cohen. In my case, it's Susan Holmes, it's Quinn Michaels. They have the same playbook, Charles,
Right.
and they're doing the same things again and again and again.
Same business model.
Same business model, and they don't change it.
Monkey business model. Now, Parma also is an old-fashioned, wonderful Italian restaurant.
Seems
Doesn't
to be
appear to be too active.
Yeah. Takeout and delivery, it says.
Jenny Craig.
It's disturbing to me, Charles, that people don't get it. They're just either too
Well,
gullible.
Yeah, and the trap people are running, this is another famous one. I forget the name of this one. This is, yeah, Dewey, another good one. And Luke's. These have been around since 1991, some of them.
You know what I saw? They said that there's somebody who's making history selling his bar for Bitcoin.
Really?
Yep.
But, so going back to what I was, the jag I was going to go down is that in 2000, when the internet bubble burst, broadband internet wasn't really widely used.
Right.
The ability to watch movies, to watch clips, the functionality of the internet just wasn't there.
Right.
So it wasn't that easy in the crash that happened in 2000 to replace jobs in the way they were replaced in 2009. We had the second crash. And
What do you
then
mean? How were they replaced then?
Well, you just had better, it was more reasonable to say, we don't need this big office. We don't need to have everybody gather in an office. They can communicate on the internet. We don't need to travel. So it was easier in 2009 to take a meat axe to bureaucracies in the private sector, which is what happened. When you look at the job and income totals for 2007, 8, and 9, there was a dramatic fall off in 9 compared to 8 and 9. And everyone likes to look at the Obama recovery taking 9 as the base. Jobs and income went down in 10 as well. That's, I think, one of the reasons that the Tea Party was so formed and was so effective in the election of 2010. My point is that in each one of these reversals, now the pandemic, businesses are better able to replace humans with either cheaper humans in other parts of the world or take them out of the equation altogether with technology and now with AI. And so the population globally keeps growing. The number of private sector jobs that are high paying doesn't keep growing. The cost of educating your kids to get one of those jobs keeps growing. And now with the technocracy, you've got people deciding, picking winners and losers. They decide
Forcing winners to become losers.
right, or calling losers
to
winners.
become winners, right.
Right, and so the technocracy starts in the schools. They decide who gets to go to the prestige schools and graduate schools. They decide in those prestige schools who arbitrarily gets grades. I believe Yale Law School now doesn't even give out grades. So you can just take somebody like a Stacey Abrams who's an idiot.
And give her an A.
Well, and make her the kingmaker of 2020 or the queenmaker or whatever you want to call her.
Charles, they're deciding who gets to be president.
Exactly. Exactly. And so you're giving the unelected crooked technocrats ever more power at a time where they now have the ability to wreak havoc on your livelihood.
Well, they have.
And their next step, I think, I'm pretty sure what we're going to hear, mark my words, the next step is going to be that a new variant of COVID has come out.
Oh, they already said it.
Well, no, but just let me take it a little further. A new variant has come out, and this variant spreads via cash or on cash. And for that reason, we're now going to cancel cash. And then, many people in America don't have bank accounts.
Right.
And then more don't have credit cards. We'll cross over that way.
Right.
And so then you cancel cash, you force people to be beholden to these credit score companies, which can be gamed. You then know everything that you're buying, and you then also start rationing healthcare based on your credit score, based on this, and you introduce a social credit store and stuff like that. They are a hair's breadth away under this Looney Tune Pelosi, who really is she's a daughter of criminals. She's a criminal,
alcoholic, clearly,
and
shaking,
a rapacious, power-hungry ghoul. And the people around her, they're grooming mini ghoul AOC to be in her place. And it'd be one thing if I wouldn't even actually be in favor of this. That you take somebody, let's say, is perfectly normal, but has a history of always making the wrong decision, and whose life gets in worse and worse shape. You could see an argument saying, look, there is on the question of whether vanilla ice cream is normally white and chocolate ice cream is normally black. We don't need to have an endless debate. We don't need a department in ice cream color PhD to say, well, actually, white is black and black is white. We don't need that. And similarly, there are certain choices in life that you make. It's not the best idea to try to work in a mainstream job, staying up till 8 in the morning, getting high on drugs and drinking a lot of booze.
It's showing up at 11.
Yeah, it tends not to work well.
Yeah.
Or
Unless you're Hunter Biden.
yeah, exactly. So, but even in that scenario, the hypothetical that I outlined, I would argue that it is not government's role to say to those people, look, you need to stop this. Eventually you're going to learn. You got to learn it the hard way yourself. And what we've gone now to is this nanny state. By the way, this is the hospital where my 2 delightful kids were born. Lenox Hill Hospital.
Nice.
So-
Northwell Health. Unfortunately, Charles, I'm afraid.
We're almost out.
No. Northwell Health are a bunch of scammers.
Yeah. And I'm pleased to see that restaurant is still open. Orsay. Have you ever been there? It's a very good French
No.
bistro.
I think I've been to Orsay in France. It's a city, isn't it?
Uh,
Or a museum?
I think it's a part of Paris, is it not?
Yeah, something like that. Now, what's this?
Just a church.
It seems like some specific kind of church.
But
Charles, I'm sorry to subject you to that
it's okay.
potential danger.
I'm just, people I'm sure
I hear you, I know. And
They'd
I
purchase
don't
life
want
insurance on
anything
me.
to happen to you, of course, and I don't want anything to happen to me. But I cannot shrink from idiots.
I noticed. But I'm just a huge fan of knowing the odds. And
No, I hear you. I
when
hear
you
you.
see, an excitable mob
I'm
of
just
questionable intelligence.
Again, disappointed in the NYPD for literally doing nothing.
They would say we instigated it.
By walking through the park?
We're white guys. We walked to a BLM thing,
So we're not allowed to go in the park because they've decided that they're having a food drive. And is it even a legitimate food drive? I mean,
Certainly
that's
not.
a charity activity, right?
Certainly not. There is no legitimate BLM organization in New York that I know of,
So that means they're not allowed to accept food and give it to people?
in the guise of charity.
But if it's just a bunch of friends who say, come to the park and bring cans and we're going to give it to homeless people, that's okay, isn't it?
It's okay, but not to represent that you are an organization when you're not an organization. But with a real charter, articles, bylaws, registering, filling
They're
out
all
forms.
just liars, fakers, phonies.
No.
They have their faces covered and starting fights with us and calling me a coward.
Yeah. Well, they think they won. They'll find out in time they lost.
Yeah, I'm a little bit afraid that their losing or their winning is going to cause us to lose or whatever. And by the time they find out, Scarlet Poppy, isn't that weird?
A ravishing new cologne, intense. JoeMalone.com. Next to an
Poppy.
empty store.
A lot of empty stores.
Empty suits, empty
I just
stores.
don't know who could feel proud about,
De Blasio probably feels proud. I wrecked the city. Let's go dance in Times Square.
Think about how hard someone designed each of these buildings, made each piece of glass, this stupid keypad, somebody sweated and fought with their wife about trying to invent this thing and got it made and whatever. And now, all
Empty.
this stuff is destroyed. All the work, all the effort people put into the businesses in here.
And as businesses go down, there's typically a lot of emotional stress on the
That's what I mean.
owner and the
fighting.
employees,
Right,
the families.
right. You got a bunch of 20-year-old kids
Idiots.
collecting a few cans so they can stand in the park and agitate fights with people.
More
Shows
vacant
everything.
stores. Let's do a thought experiment and see if we get to a single street on the way home.
That doesn't have
That
a
doesn't
business
have a
out of
store out.
business? No,
Right.
I don't think we'll see that.
And again, it's not as fancy as Park Avenue, Madison, and Fifth Avenue, but this is not the cut rate portion of New York City.
But BLT, that's Bistro Laurent Thomas, right? Or whatever his
Is
name
it?
is? Yeah, that's a fancy thing.
This whole thing is
Empty.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to sit outside in the cold, not, and have dinner, and pay much more than it would cost me to make it myself, where I could eat inside in a nice place.
And not have to worry about maniacs coming
Right.
up.
Multiple maniacs.
You know, the other ingenious,
This could be slippery, Jason.
yeah, it looks like it is. You wearing boots? You want to go around it over there?
Yeah, I do actually.
The other ingenious conclusion that AOC came to, Charles, is that she said something about, oh, well, if you've lost, you know, thousands of followers after Twitter started deleting, you know, whatever. I mean, she basically came to the conclusion, she said, if you've lost thousands of followers after Twitter started deleting neo-Nazis or something like that, you know, maybe don't announce that to everybody.
Listen,
And-
bitch, I've lost thousands of followers, but Twitter lost me. And don't you dare tell me what to do.
Not only that, it's also, you cannot draw that conclusion. I actually think what it means is that Twitter is not a social media platform, but a social engineering platform that is rife with fake accounts that have a variety of different objectives. Boosting the message of idiots like AOC, you know, suppressing the message or sending out to other people who agitate. You know, there's a lot of Twitter accounts that follow me just for the strict purpose of, you know, irritating and insulting me.
Yeah, I mean, in real life, Art Carney on The Honeymooners was a very smart man. I think you said you spoke to
Spoke to him on the phone.
Yeah,
Actually,
he really,
twice.
but he played a dumbass effectively in The Honeymooners. And I think AOC in real life is dumber than that character. I mean, honestly, what has she accomplished
As a congresswoman,
in life, period?
answer to both questions is nothing that I'm aware of.
But by all means, let's have her take on Schumer. You know, I'd love to see that fight.
I
be hilarious.
The problem now is she has confidence. I think in her first term, you know, she was a little bit, you know, she was a freshman. She was a bit trepidatious, but there's a renewed confidence in all of these lefty maniacs after Wednesday. That was their big move, and they pulled it off.
So far.
Charles, I seriously think that QAnon was created to corral people who cannot think for themselves, to identify people who could be incited to believe obvious bullshit.
Right.
And, you know,
Just continuing my running observation, this street didn't make it. The street's got tons of empty stores.
yeah.
This block. Sorry.
No, it's true. It's true.
Now we're coming up on really high-end stuff, because this is a mixture of high-end living. Yes, we can.
I don't know.
Doesn't really look precisely like Obama, does it?
No,
Looks
it's
a little-
a bad painting of Obama, and it doesn't seem like it's promising. It's evocative of jail. It's
Right.
inner city decay. I mean, what is that supposed to show us?
I don't know.
I'm not sure what the photographer's intention was, but I don't think that's a very nice photograph.
Yeah. Well, this one's out, so this block loses too.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we're going to see a single block from here.
Chartier. I've seen those before.
Scooters.
These are the funny old shops that I remember as a kid. Eyeglass shops, knick-knack shops.
Check our comments and see if anything breaking is happening here.
Look at this place. An old antique
Wild
place.
Man says, why can't good win for once? Well, it's not over yet, but we're definitely on the ropes here.
East Pole Fish is out. Now we're
Anyone who is positive on the 17th letter of the alphabet, please either keep that sentiment to yourself or go comment somewhere else. I'm not going to be convinced that your opinion of it is correct. Reefer Madman says, COVID part of the coup. That I agree with.
Yeah, well, obviously, I mean, the whole story that you would stop this 15 days to stop the spread, and now we're going on a year. I think we're about 2 months away from a year. And the number of cases has been accelerating, not slowing down, despite the lockdown, and the economic damage has been profound. So the whole thesis had nothing to do with COVID and everything to do with controlling humanity. And we have the Davos class getting set to meet in May in Singapore and reset us into financial servitude.
When does it meet?
May, Singapore.
It's hot and rainy in May in Singapore,
I know.
isn't it?
I know.
Or maybe not. Maybe
And it's
that's
hot,
November.
and it's hot and stupid at the World Economic Forum.
Okay, so see, we've got here Cartina, who doesn't understand English. If you like the 17th letter of the alphabet, go talk about it somewhere else.
No, it's,
Because I'm not interested in it, and you're not going to convince me of it, and you're either a social engineer or an idiot. And I've had it with idiots, Charles.
I've noticed.
We're getting close to the Chrysler building over there.
Yep, we're actually a mile away from that.
I feel the need to drop a potentially explosive bomb right now, Charles.
All right, just don't drop it on me.
This is my speculation, but I've been thinking about it for a long time. I think General Flynn is behind Q, and I think that it was not intended to help Donald Trump.
Well,
And you know what? I've supported Flynn. I've sent money to Flynn. I've sent money to Sidney Powell, but they've behaved in ways that don't make sense. They've promoted behavior that is not helpful to the president or to people who want law and order and a proper election result.
yeah.
And they have supported people who I know are liars, and when I've told them they're liars, they've terminated communication with me, rather than saying, what is it that causes you to think that that person's a liar? And I'm not saying,
Let's go this way.
Charles, that anybody should listen to everything that I have to say, but when a person calls you and says, I have evidence about something, and you refuse to even listen to it, that doesn't make logical sense to me.
Yeah, suspicious. And Jason, where am I walking you to?
The subway, I think.
No, the
Where?
Council on Foreign Relations.
Ah, perfect, Charles.
It's right near here.
More scoundrels. So if I'm wrong, General Flynn, you can respond to my DMs on Twitter. You've done that before. It's interesting that he stopped tweeting at Tracy Beans when I told him that I had evidence that she's a liar. I don't think I've publicly published that phone call yet, but maybe I should. I didn't publish it because I didn't want to fight among truthers, but there are people among us who are liars, just like there were Antifa wearing Trump hats.
Right.
The other reason I say this about General Flynn is that, remember, he did work for Obama, and he was the head of the Defense Intelligence Agency, which is like more secretive than the CIA. And I don't understand why we don't trust the CIA. I understand why we don't trust the CIA. What I don't understand is why, when somebody like Robert David Steele or Kevin Shipp or General Flynn present themselves as an individual, that we automatically cling to them as heroes.
Right.
What if Obama said, hey, you know what? We need somebody right along the lines of, Quinn Michaels or Susan Holmes coming to me and infiltrating Crowdsource the truth so that they could lie to me and try to destroy the organization later. How do we know they didn't do that with Michael Flynn and set up everything that happened to him to make him look like, oh, he's got to be on Trump's side. Look at how Obama destroyed him. And
I
then
don't know,
ultimately
Jason.
at the last minute, what is he doing to help?
Yeah. I don't know.
Right back to me, General. If I've got it wrong, tell me what I've got wrong. Why would you use Covington and Burling as your lawyer if you hated Obama so much? Why would you go to a law firm that has Obama's attorney general as a partner? That makes no sense. And then you switch to Sidney Powell after Scott Bennett, who himself has made a lot of mistakes, but even a broken clock is right twice a day. After Scott Bennett pointed out that you were using Covington and Burling, then you switch to Sidney, who was a fellow at the London Center, run by Anthony Schaefer, who so many people have told me is a liar.
Yeah. But, I don't really have an opinion about that stuff, Jason, so
All right, I'll talk about it on a separate show, Charles, but we're running out of time. I'm running out of patience. I don't trust these people who put out nonsense stories and then nothing ever happens. Flynn promoted Q. Q, in my view, was an obvious trap to
Well-
make anyone see how these guys say, "Oh, Proud Boys." I have nothing to do with the Proud Boys. I have
Right.
nothing to do with QAnon.
But let's if we can stay focused on the next
Yeah.
week, the next
Okay,
10
let's
days.
do
So
that.
so today, everyone's saying that Trump has no excuse but to declassify. I know what I was going to say. Bannon had Giuliani on and was saying just that the two of them were saying that Giuliani especially was saying you got to declassify President Trump. You got to declassify. So if he doesn't do it, then we know. And I forget if this is a CFR. That
It's like a townhouse. This looks
no,
like
no,
this.
it's definitely a building like this. Let's go to. It may not be this one. It says on it, I think, Council on Foreign
It
Relations.
says Council on Foreign Relations on it, doesn't
On
it?
this?
On a plaque. Well,
Okay.
no, on the building somewhere. I think down on that corner.
Okay.
Oh, and by the way, Patrick Byrne is a member of the Council on Foreign
Yeah,
Relations.
many are. But so for the next week to 10 days, really for the next 24 hours, Trump, if he is serious about trying to, preserve any legacy, he must declassify. I know he doesn't like to be told what to do, but he's got to get this information out. What does this say here?
58 East 68th Street. Deliveries.
660.
I know. I
Divide
remember it
by
had
what?
some kind of unique stairs to it.
No, it's definitely one of I've been to it. I mean, it's definitely one of these buildings. I forget which cross street it is, or maybe further down. That's the old Armory. Ann Armory, where they have antique shows and stuff.
Do they have tanks in there and stuff?
Sorry?
Tanks and
The
guns
National
and stuff?
Guard will put,
This has got to be it.
let's look. It could actually, this may just be an apartment building.
It's a good jail.
It would say,
Yeah, this isn't it, because this, maybe that's the stairs I'm thinking of.
no, it's. I think it was the building I pointed out
Yeah,
first.
I agree.
This is
So it's just an apartment
no, that's an
building.
apartment building. Let's go. We could go down 5th if you want.
Whatever you want to do.
Yeah. Just want to show people new stuff.
Oh, we should mention to people that on the walk up here, we ran into the naked cowboy.
Right.
And I mean, it's freezing cold out, and he was in his regular underwear.
Yeah.
I don't know how he does
His
it.
veins are filled with, I don't know, lighter fluid or something.
Something.
So going back then, we have tonight is a night where the news cycle, the talking heads have spoken, they wet their beds, they've done whatever they're going to do. People are relaxing now. And this would be the perfect night to throw the whole news cycle off, drop this stuff, have a lot of discussion in the coming week, seed this information out to people like pick John Solomon or somebody like that who has a team who can look and tear it apart and get all kinds of articles going.
What's that? The EU.
Yeah, probably it's the Italian consulate or something. What?
Oh, it's 35. I thought it.
It is 33.
Well, that's not surprising, is it?
This is the Italian Trade Agency.
I mean, I didn't make it 33,
Yeah.
so.
So if Trump does not do that, Tuesday he's going to be out flying to Texas to inspect the border wall, which will make it kind of difficult to prosecute, explain the receipts and the evidence and all that kind of stuff. Now you're into Wednesday.
Why is the border wall important now?
I don't know, but he's decided to go there. The point is,
weird,
the
isn't it?
point is you're running out of runway. And so if you don't do anything by tonight, you're getting ever closer. There's supposed to be some polar vortex storm that may or may not hit by the 14th, 15th, or whatever. A week from tomorrow is Martin Luther King Day. Then you have one day, and then the next day is the inauguration. So you're basically out of runway.
Here,
if the
check this out, Charles.
What?
That's a beautiful view down the street with these lights on the side, these
Yeah.
remaining Christmas things. So we're running out of runway.
And the other issue, of course, is we have the market opening up. Tonight, or actually right around now, about an hour from now, we'll start seeing in Tokyo the futures and the S&P futures start trading, Dow futures, and people are going to have a view. I mean, the notion that Clyburn, the Democratic senior, I don't know what his post will be in the House going forward, he made Joe Biden president, basically. he's talking about getting a whole bunch of legislation passed in 100 days, meaning we're going to see new taxes. We're going to see, if Biden gets in there, we're going to see all kinds of anti-business, anti-wealth, anti-capitalism moves, which are certainly not priced into this market right now. So in the next 24 hours is crucial. If Trump whiffs, and we've had reporting, which I don't know if it's true or not, that Rosen, who's the acting attorney general,
Right.
is a Bushy who was slow walking Durham.
That's what I saw. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Trump whiffs like Durham, like Huber, like others, like Barr,
Yeah.
then unfortunately what's going to happen to him is that people on the right are going to be justifiably really pissed, because our welfares will be dramatically impacted negatively. Our futures will be quite gloomy. And people who have been on the margin supporting Trump are going to say, Jesus, what the hell? The guy was there for 4 years. He controlled the House and the Senate for 2 of them. You know, and I know he was learning on the job, but he had to know that he was going to get iced if he didn't do this. And if what he's playing for is a pardon, he has to understand.
Pardon for himself?
And his family, he has to understand that there is no ability. It's debatable, but I concluded when thinking about the Clinton Foundation and Obama, my research with some lawyers suggested that you should assume that if you're pardoned for a federal crime, that doesn't give you a pardon from state crimes that could be charged against you for the same set of facts. And so, I mean, Trump stands and his family stands mightily exposed here. I hope he's not wasting his precious few hours trying to negotiate a pardon for himself and his family with
That
Pence.
doesn't feel Trumpian to me, and he can't trust Pence after what happened.
Right. So we'll go to sleep tonight. We'll wake up in the morning, and maybe we'll be disappointed again. And to those of you who've been loyally watching the show, hoping for a bright future, if we don't see a clear sign in the next 24 hours that Trump is serious about telling the truth concerning the Obama, Comey, Bush, Clinton efforts to sabotage him
coup.
as a coup, sabotage him in 15, 16, undercut him during his presidency, and the
And
coup
now.
in this election. If we don't see proof, evidence that you and I can look at, the emails, the correspondence, the documents that go into a timeline, if we don't see that, then I fear we are, as Biden said, as you said,
Dark winter.
broken clock is right twice a day. In the case of Biden, he said his brilliant marketing plan to get us all pumped for the Biden administration is our worst days are yet ahead. God almighty. I fear we're going to understand that as soon as by tomorrow.
You know, I've said a lot of negative things about the president and certain entities and people that a lot of our viewers are very fond of, Charles, and I want to be clear. I haven't given up. I
Yeah.
still hope that President Trump will use the power of the presidency to do something that can actually have a serious impact here. I don't want any more emails from people that say, oh, the president's going to speak at 7 o'clock tonight, and then at 8 o'clock send me an email that says he's going to speak at 9 o'clock tonight. Until I hear Donald Trump's voice
Saying
coming out of his mouth on a video,
Well,
saying something new.
not saying, said, on my command, I did this.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
that's what I want to hear. I don't want to hear, I won the election, it was stolen from me. I want
Correct.
to hear, on my command, acting under my duly,
Presidential authority.
I, hours ago, directed
Arrested
this,
Dorsey.
directed that. I reserve all of my rights to contest what happened, but in the interest of good order inside this country and around the world, I will allow a transition to occur on the 20th, but I reserve all my legal challenges. I'm going to pursue them, and should it be determined that theft on a scale never imagined has occurred, well, we'll have to decide what we're going to do about that as a country.
It just seems like that is going to be too little too late. I want to see him do something like arrest Jack Dorsey, Mark Zuckerberg, and whoever else.
You mean
And
Osama
immediately Obama.
No, Osama bin Dorsey?
I mean,
You
I'm
see that
just saying-
picture of him?
I did see the picture of him.
Yeah.
It's just we're letting all these guys do whatever, and they're getting away with it, and nothing has been done.
I agree. So little has been done. Here we see a nice cityscape. That's 59th Street, the big, tall, skinny buildings. Many of them are owned, in theory, by Chinese and foreign purchasers who buy them through LLC, who have historically bought them through LLC corporations, where you can't really get to understand who is the owner. Pretty quiet over here.
Yeah. Starting to hear helicopters, Charles. Do you
Are
think
they
tonight
black?
will be a night of violence? I mean, we had this morning, and we had that little brief display right there.
Right.
They definitely seem primed. It's like maybe those are the people who missed the Washington, D.C. festivities, and, you know, they're a little bit... Because, you know, when you think about it, Charles, there was a long while where it was like, hey, there hasn't been a riot in a while. I think they were saving up their strength for D.C.
Yeah. Well, the BLM riots that we covered were just, it's hair trigger stuff. And I think it's all done with a script,
Right.
pre-planned script.
Oh, yeah, I was talking about CNN before.
Who are
I was-
they?
Well, I mean, I was watching it, and they were interviewing a guy. I guess I said this already, and he said specifically that they were, you know, crowding the stairs. And then when one guy said, "Oh, I'm going to break the window and go in," a lot of people said, "No, don't do that."
Right.
And then he broke it anyway, and people started streaming in. So that's just it. You know, when you even look at the videos, once you start going, you know, there's like a row of people yelling at the cops, and then behind them, and then behind them, you go 2, 3, 4 people back, and it's like people just standing there doing nothing, whereas in close proximity, there's people fighting with the cops.
Yeah.
So it can really be a very, very small number of people who agitate these things, and then when you're in a crowd and it's moving in a direction, and you're like, oh, hey, wait a minute, we're going inside. You might
See.
not even realize it.
This is the Knickerbocker Club, for those who don't know New York. This is an extremely exclusive club that I believe costs $100,000 to join it, and you can't just ask to join. You know,
Wow.
a member has to.
What's going on in there?
It's just a gentleman's club, I think. It's an old New York club.
It's funny how
And-
the Gentleman's Club has taken on a
No,
new
it's a
definition.
legitimate club. I mean, it's real old money. It's one of these places where a member has to decide to take a risk proposing you. And I don't know if it's as serious as if you propose somebody and they don't get in, you're supposed to resign. But it's really snobby. And this, when I was a kid, used to be, this whole building lot used to be a private residence. You know, the lot was, you knocked the building down and imagine just a big lot with a big mansion in the center of it. Didn't occupy this much space. You did see, people were talking to me about this at, I think it's in Vanity Fair or something like that. There's an argument that now Ivanka and Jared are going to be punished by, quote, high society, and they're never going to be allowed to go to the high society parties and deal with these other self-anointed high society types. And my experience with high society people is they are basically,
Assholes.
I wouldn't say it that way. I would say they're insecure. Many of them are not legitimately high society people.
Well, Charles, do you know where we are right now?
Pierre, yeah.
Yes, this is the site of Event 201.
Is that right?
Oh, yeah, and look at
Planning
the...
for COVID?
Yes, look at the checkerboard floor. I don't know if I've noticed that before. So in October 2019,
They all rehearse this?
yeah, they had their little Event 201 here at the Pierre Hotel.
It's a nice place, actually. You ever been in the bar?
I went there once when I was about a teenager or so. I was invited to some fancy brunch there, and I have to say, it was amazing. It was one of the most amazing dining experiences I've ever had.
This is where you and I went. My friend, who won't say his name, this is the Metropolitan Club. Another
Oh,
very
yes,
fancy
right.
place.
But that's like upstairs, huh?
This is the whole building, Metropolitan Club. We ate at upstairs at the top, but this is really, I mean, it's for a city. It's a nice cityscape.
Absolutely. And
That Plaza Hotel, which I think today is back to being condominiums again.
I think it's both hotel and condos.
All right. When it was just hotels, it really was a hustle bustle place with the Oak Bar. I guess the drinking must be
Trader
pretty
Vic's,
intense
right?
because we've been talking about this used to
Yeah.
be and that used to be. But
People are definitely getting their money's worth on today's Sunday with Charles.
Why don't we just keep going until
Yeah, absolutely.
12:01? Then it'll give
Well-
me Sunday and then Monday withdrawals.
Oh, I don't know about that. We'll keep going until the batteries don't
All right.
work any longer. And
Let's maybe we walked down 6th recently.
I don't know.
Let's go across 57th and then down either 6th or 7th, whichever you.
You want to go through Times Square?
Whatever you prefer.
Yeah. Yeah, we'll just head over that way and see what's going on.
This is an epic walk, Jason.
I know.
I mean, I guess we did it down in Washington, so we're just
Right, winding down now.
This used to be, or this is, I think, or maybe it isn't any longer, that fancy Italian place. What's it called? Harry Cipriani.
How is that? Is that? I mean, it's got to be related to the other Cipriani.
This is the original one.
Yeah, that's what I mean. That's.
And he, I think, had very serious tax problems, like not paying them.
Oh,
I don't know if he went to jail, but
that becomes a problem.
yeah. Unless you're Joe Biden, Hunter Biden.
Do
Yeah.
they not pay that? Yeah, Hunter Biden didn't pay taxes.
He
Right?
doesn't believe it. Bidens don't believe in doing that. So, nor do the Clintons. After a lifetime of public service, it should be after a lifetime of incarceration.
Well, so someone's saying stay on 5th. They want to see how much is closed, but we came up 5th,
No, we didn't.
didn't we?
We met on.
Oh, right.
We could stay on 5th. That's fine by
Okay,
me.
Whatever you want to do.
Although I don't like taking instruction. Note to the crowd.
Yeah, right. That's actually, we probably shouldn't do that because if there's somebody waiting for us on 5th.
Where is? We won't do it then. Where is the place where we always get interference? Get interference. 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 Interference. Get.
We'll just fix that.
I'll remind. Are we going or not?
Not yet. Hang on. Check. We're back.
Yeah, I forget if it was 58th Street here or 56th, but in the early 90s, when I was really young and had too much cash and too much income, I came up with the genius idea of being the person to buy either the penthouse or the next apartment down in a building that was going up, I think, on this block. And I asked to go see it on short notice, and they hadn't yet built the final stories that I wanted to buy, but they had a floor plan. They said, well, you could go up in the construction elevator,
Right.
and you could take a look at the space, which is not not built out yet, but you can see the rough side of it.
Right.
And I don't know if you've ever done that.
I did it in my apartment.
Did you? Okay. Well, but up
had to wear a hard hat.
65 stories up.
No.
Yeah. And so I think it was 65 stories or something like that.
So those exterior elevators? with
Yeah,
no
exactly. And I was like, what am I thinking? But anyway, I go all the way up there, and it was terrifying. And actually, the building kind of did this in the wind. And thankfully, I didn't buy it because, as it turned out, whatever the building was, and people can research it, the guy finished the building.
Oh, with like Chinese drywall or something?
No, that's up on Park there. The guy finished the building, but he built it like 4 stories too high. And the city said, you know what you got to do? You got to take it down.
What? The
So
whole
the apartment
building?
that I would the 4 stories, the apartment that I would have bought
How can they
and
do
paid
that?
for it, no, because it was against code.
But I mean, how do you
Let's go down, sir.
deconstruct a building? Thanks.
Thank you. Who was that?
I don't know, but I guess it's somebody recognized us.
Go. Let's go that way. Now there's a serious TV truck there.
Yeah.
That's interesting that people would recognize us in that way.
Well, I mean, we got a lot of that in Washington, D.C. It's nice to, not be...
Go down. Let's go down here and over.
Sure. I mean, the project of taking 4 stories off the top of a building
Right.
seems difficult to do to me.
Well, they did it. They did it. And it would have been a spectacular bummer if I'd actually bought the apartment.
What would they do? Just give you your money back? Or get into a
Probably.
huge lawsuit and tell you to go after the city? That's what would happen.
Probably.
Nobody gives money back.
Yeah. I don't know. They
Good
wouldn't.
thing
They
that
wouldn't
didn't
willingly do it. But thank God I didn't do it. Yeah, this is News 4 New York. I wonder why they're crowded out.
Well, I mean, there was a pretty significant event going on in the morning, and I bet $1 they're here waiting. I mean, they might know something about to happen. Let's walk by at least just Trump Tower and see if there's anything going on there.
It's
I
right
promise
there.
I won't fight with anybody.
It's right there. There's nothing going on.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Is there anybody out there?
No.
No, nothing. That's strange.
So we could go down, let's go down 56 then. We haven't
Sure.
done that. This is quite the show, Jason. Already 2 hours and 20 minutes.
Well, I mean, again, we're just kind of like information gathering out here, even that altercation. It's interesting that they're all so worried about, oh, there goes that. So hang on, I got a charger for it. It's interesting how many of the Black Lives Matter supporters are interested in not having their faces be seen. I mean, why is that? So that they can then later infiltrate Trump events and people don't know who they are?
I guess.
There's another idiot skating down the street.
With a funny mask, kicking things. He's a provocateur.
Of course.
Skated very close to us as well.
I know.
Are we live or?
We are. This just needs a minute to get this thing charged.
Okay. So yeah, what we'll do now is we're going to go across 56th and we'll figure out whether that building I was talking about was on 58th or 56th.
I don't trust any of these guys, Charles.
Me either.
All right.
It's amazing you can get a picture in this darkness.
I know they've done great things with these tiny phone camera sensors.
So this is an area primarily today filled with office buildings, but there are the odd condo development. A lot of the condos were then turned into hotels when there was business in New York. And a lot of used to be very high-end expensive restaurants in and around here, but those days, I think,
Yeah.
are gone.
I mean, life is going to change very much over the next, unless Donald Trump pulls a rabbit out of a hat, which I am hopeful he will, but cannot imagine what that will be. And I do not think it's anything that any of these anonymous sources have told us. I don't think anything that McInerney says
Right.
makes any sense.
Right, but we have, a limited number of days. Before the 20th, we're going to know the truth for sure. And the market will plunge. There's nothing Jay Powell can do at this stage. I mentioned that the benchmark rate on 10-year treasuries, which is U.S. government 10-year notes, has climbed from roughly 35 basis points, an all-time low, roughly that number, up to above 110 in a matter of weeks, months. And under Biden, with all this talk of massive spending and a history of reckless spending, you got to believe that interest rates are going to climb further. And then Biden and others are talking about how everybody in America is entitled to a $15 an hour wage. Yeah.
Even if you're making $200 an hour.
Well, I know if you're in a tough business, you're operating a deli in small town Mississippi, you can't pay somebody $15 an hour. There's no way.
I read a sensible report one time about how mandatory minimum wage actually hurts business. Yeah. And it was talking about exactly that, how it just gets small business owners to hire less people and hire part-time people and do other things to cut out like benefits and salary.
Yeah, here we have.
Retail available.
Yeah, exactly. All of these supposed genius models, many of them, use what's called static analysis. They do not assume that there'd be a dynamic reaction to an act of government policy. So they just say, well, if we raise it $15 an hour, the same number of people will be working, and that means their incomes will be higher, and they'll turn around and spend that money and nourish businesses. No, that's not what's going to happen. You tell a restaurant owner, a beleaguered restaurant owner in 2021, what?
What do you think about this place?
I like Benihana.
I do too, but the problem is they can't do
The
their
outdoor.
core business. Like this restaurant will not be able to stay because it's a teppanyaki. Their whole thing is all that show inside, chopping up.
And
shrimp.
look how comfortable these people look. Let's not dwell on them in their winter coats.
But they do this static analysis where
Right.
they think everybody is going to get $15 an hour, and that's.
And they
gonna
get a
fix it.
study, they publish a study from McKinsey or some consulting firm saying that this idea makes sense. All the corrupt companies that benefit from the legislation pay off the politicians, and next thing you know, you plunge this country, the largest market in the world, economic market in the world, into a deep depression. And then the government says, well, the private sector has failed.
Take a picture.
Private sector has failed. And so we need to replace the private sector
Socialism.
with all-knowing, all-seeing AOC and her collection of yin-yangs.
Amazon's delivering packages Sunday night.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's go. 6 more interesting than 7 for which.
Yeah, let's go down. Go past Fox.
All right. Faux, you mean?
Yeah.
We could actually cross the street while we're at it. In the old days, that Pazzanotte was a nice place. I don't know if you've ever been. A simple place. Have you ever been there?
No, and I mean, I've said it a million times, but I don't understand how they were allowing these more and more elaborate outdoor restaurants to be constructed when, I mean, it really just let people go inside.
Certainly not to code.
Not to code. How have they scientifically tested this to determine that the virus is less likely to get you in there than it is outside? Why aren't Black Lives Matter Antifa agitators here yelling at people sitting at tables with masks off to put on masks?
They will. It's just silliness. Why would you want to do this? I mean, why would you want to sit out here and eat on 6th Avenue?
I mean, people get annoyed that we point it out because the restaurants are trying their best, and I don't want to upset anybody who owns a restaurant. I know I would be doing the same thing, whatever you can do to hang on to your business. I'm pointing it out to point out the pointless nature of the edicts by the mayor, the edicts by the governor, and the fact that this is just nuts. I mean, to the extent that people went to the Capitol and did whatever they did, whether that's just listening to the president's speech, standing on the lawn, or regrettably breaking into the building, I think most people were there for the same basic reason, Charles, is that we're fed up.
Well, yeah, and this is a resentment that's been building for a long time. Globalism has failed the American worker. Globalism has failed the salaried worker. The Nancy Pelosi deficit spend, government, and personal idea is insanity. I mean, you can't have a capitalist system when 80% of the population has no capital, right? It's not capital, it's crony bureaucracy.
Right.
It's crony handouts. And it's one thing when you look at the statistics, I haven't looked at them recently, but I would venture to say that the total amount of government spending in the US is probably north of $7 trillion a year. And so you can't say that we're not spending enough money. We're spending too much money, and it leaves workers in a place where they can't exist. They can't pay their rent or their mortgage. They can't save for retirement. They find themselves in a place where at the end of every week they're borrowing more and more money one way or another. Credit
card
cards,
bills,
from
right.
family, however they do it. And so this whole period, 89 to the present, 88 to the present, you can go further back if you want, but it has been a war against workers, waged by both parties.
Is this the Hilton?
This is what was left of the Hilton.
I mean, that's normally
Just
filled
jammed.
with people waiting for taxis, coming out of here, busy as can be, and it's currently closed.
Yeah. I think the correct phrase is busy as fuck.
Yeah.
I mean, I believe in the old days, the people who waved the cabs in got a kickback from the cab drivers.
Oh, well, certainly people would hand them $1 when they get a cab.
No, but in addition, the cab driver, they had arrangements where the cab drivers would pay.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oopsie. Check, 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 check. Yeah, it's back. Okay. It's got a lot of unique failure modalities.
Testing the limits, Jason.
Testing the limits always, Charles. Some people don't like it when I do that.
So we're walking by the original office of the Clinton Foundation. We're getting close, but I think they've moved.
Wow, that smelled like amazingly good chicken. Did you smell that?
I did. I don't think I'd want any of it.
No, but it does smell good. I don't like eating food off of those carts, but maybe it's African rat shish kebab.
That stuff rocks. I'll give you the franchise for West Virginia.
The African rat.
This is step
King.
up, boys.
Instead of
Or
Burger
Arkansas,
King.
or Arkansas is better than the raccoon dinner.
Yeah.
So how do you like the way in which once the riots occurred or were said to be instigated by Trump, how do you like the way the Clintons immediately danced on Donald Trump's grave?
They were the ones who arranged the funeral.
Right.
Someone in our comments before said Q is Hillary. Now, I mean, that's one of those statements sort of like...
I thought which begins with a W.
Right. That's one of those statements that at first seems absurd, but frankly, I don't think is that crazy. I think Obama might be a more likely culprit, but...
But if you go back, Jason, into that period, that March 14th, roughly, 17 period, this is when Peter Smith's still alive.
Right.
This is when Comey's still the head of the FBI.
But Flynn was a component in the Peter Smith story, wasn't he? He was on all those Wall Street Journal articles.
Well, what it was is Peter Smith was trying to meet and may have met either with Flynn's brother or son or with Flynn himself. He may have met. I just tuned all that crap out. I wasn't, I forget what he told me exactly. It's probably in some of my emails. But my point is, that's a period when Smith was still alive, Flynn was out by March 14th, Comey was still very much directing traffic, Comey was interacting with Wittes and Shane Harris and others. The FBI was interacting with all the media, feeding them lies.
We just lost... Hang on a second. I guess it's when we're in Midtown, or I don't know. It's very hard to know when it does.
Is it back?
And that it takes me longer to do it with the gloves on because I have a lot of touchscreen stuff to interact with here. Hello, hello. Check, check, check. Now it's back. So Comey was directing traffic.
And there's a lot of information that has not been revealed to, or may have been revealed, but it's been suppressed to the congressional and senatorial oversight. Maybe to Durham, to Huber, that would help us understand how the resistance was operating in the early period when Donald Trump was just finding his feet as president. Before he fired Comey, before Mueller was put in place. And so this information may just be deep-sixed and burned. Oh, we lost that stuff. Oh, it's amazing, the internet blew up. Or
With Durham?
yeah, well, covering this period, the period after Trump won, or really, as it appeared that Trump would be the nominee, after he became the nominee, after he won but before he was inaugurated, and then after he was inaugurated but before Mueller was fired. Before Comey was fired.
Right.
There's a mountain of information, including information that Hillary Clinton's people and Bill Clinton's people must have. But to see Bill Clinton tweeted out something like, when talking about the Washington, D.C. stuff, this is what happens when for 4 years a president spreads lies and misinformation. Now that's rich coming from that guy.
Yes.
That is freaking rich.
Because they don't tell you about what happens when you spend 40 years
Yeah,
spreading
his
lies.
whole life has been doing that.
Yeah.
continues to be doing that. And so they're gloating. They think they've won. Trump gets kicked off Twitter, and they're they're tweeting away to their heart's content. We're busy, sorry. And
That guy's really following us.
that's okay.
So they're tweeting away to their heart's
You
content.
know, and they think they've got this locked, and they're ready, and the Chinese are ready.
It's looking pretty good for them.
I think.
I
Actually,
hope
I
I'm
think
wrong.
it would be a deft move, back to the art department's wonderful picture, a deft move for Harris to now start agitating against corruption and saying there could be no crony capitalism and that Trump shouldn't have a library. And by the way, what the hell was all with the Clinton Foundation and maybe even the Obama Foundation, try to get some distance, between her.
She's not going
and-
to do that. She's a puppet of them.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, she would certainly make an issue of the Clintons, because the Clintons and the Obamas, I believe, were at loggerheads. So it could be a pretty interesting thing that we'll see soon, that Harris starts moving away from Biden, and that Biden, succumbs to the second COVID vaccine. I don't wish that on him, but the second shot, or has a health emergency or whatever. I could see very quickly Harris being positioned into the chair.
This Virginia Mercedes is just parked right here in the crosswalk with nobody in it.
On.
I think they're probably waiting here to get food.
Could be. But why would you leave your car?
I don't know.
turned
Somebody should take it and go drive to Virginia. Or the
on?
Bronx.
Oh,
You
Janet
could-
Yellen's going to be.
First woman to lead the Treasury Department. And Tandon will be the first woman
Tandon would be the first cranky asshole,
of
dishonest
color
asshole,
to lead the OMB, the Office of, what is it?
managing the bitches. No, Office of Management and Budget.
What does it say there? Certified states, 2 battleground states, Wisconsin and Arizona, certify their presidential election results in favor of Joe Biden.
Right.
So this is Fox News. I don't understand, why is that news? I thought that all got handled on Wednesday.
Well, because there's an effort afoot in the legislature, I think both places, to say that the votes in question were illegally certified.
So
There's a
now
lot of
that's-
noise here. This is Fox Plaza, which tends to always have
Wait,
police
look at
out
this, look
here.
at this.
Fox lies, people die.
Toxic Fox
Propaganda
lies.
HQ. To a certain extent, I agree that there are a lot of lies coming out of the Fox. This is Fox lies, people die in black. So they obviously had a whole bunch of people come here, probably from that Antifa group.
That might be former Fox viewers who support the president.
Oh, yeah.
I've been saying Fox is terrible for a long time.
Yeah, it's a pity. It really, it's like the mistake that Coca-Cola made with New Coke. That was a stupid idea. And to go and say that what we're going to do now is we're going to try to be more like CNN, more like MSNBC. Why would you do that?
I don't know, why do they need the police here?
Just because of all this. Fearing, a redux, more people coming. Look good, the weed store's here. Weed truck.
Oh yeah, Weed World. They never miss a thing.
Now maybe what we could do for our next podcast, why don't we walk to California?
Wait, I didn't hear you.
For our next podcast, why don't we walk to California? I mean, this is a marathon here.
This is nowhere near as much walking as we did in D.C.
Really? Because I don't know about that, because we stood still for quite a while.
Oh, I guess that might be true.
Probably, I think this is longer. We've certainly walked more than 3 miles.
I feel all right.
That's no fun. It was 2 miles up from Times Square up to Carl Schurz Park, more than 2 miles.
I've definitely
then-
never been to that park before, so that was interesting. Good to see Gracie Mansion.
Call it
Interesting to see the reaction of the, peace-loving, equality-seeking.
right, tolerant.
I mean, it just shows you that movement is about wiseassery, thuggery, revenge for perceived wrongs. I never met those people. I wouldn't do anything or say anything to them if they didn't bother us.
Right. Yep.
I mean, and they think that they're justified in what they're doing.
Because they're not.
But it is a microcosm, isn't it, for the whole entire thing that we're going
careful.
through right now, Charles? You know, a bunch of entitled people who are given the idea that what you're doing is right and righteous, and you know, you have the moral high ground.
Right. Yep.
Go call a white person a racist.
Yeah. Now I think, where is it that we definitely get hit?
Oh,
Is it right around here?
I don't know.
45th. Should we head?
Across the street, maybe?
Well, I was thinking we should go.
Yeah, let's go
to
one block
7th.
over, sure.
And
Yeah,
then,
and then we
that
can
will
go
show
through
people a bit of Times Square, and then head down 7th.
Yep, I don't think the naked cowboy is out at night, but if he's still there, he had something he wanted to tell us, but we were in a hurry.
I don't want to really get waste too much time with him.
I hear you.
It's particularly if he was liquored up at
A
3,
little boozy, right?
2:30. I think he might have remembered I gave him a $20 tip.
He didn't even remember your name. Oh, you're right. He didn't know your name,
Right.
but he did claim to remember us. That's true.
I do that once.
Yeah, no. Yeah, we don't need to. I'm sure he's gone.
You want to stop at Connolly's Pub?
Nah.
I used to, when I would spend all that time in Ireland, I got so sick and tired of Irish pubs, because back then they had cigars in them and smoking in them, and
Do they not have that in Ireland anymore?
No.
Wow, that's surprising. But Charles, I mean, all these places would normally be quite busy, and they're empty.
yeah,
So that's bad. I mean, some of these things have been here, 40, 50 years.
yeah.
It was an unprecedented end of business.
I mean, this is really decimated.
Yeah.
It's closed. Portions of it.
Yeah, they got all the seats
Well, I
up
guess
on
there are people inside there,
That's going to have to be just the owners,
probably
right? Yeah, it's one guy on the phone.
on the phone with his credit card guy.
Yeah,
saying,
that's just the owner, I think.
I know my cards are all overdrawn eventually. Joe Biden's coming here and he's going to drink up the store. Wow, this is a Hyatt,
Grace
pretty
Roommate
quiet.
Hotel.
the quiet Hyatt.
Right. Oh, so, I mean, I guess that bar is probably connected to the hotel. Another reason why it would normally be full. And all these
And the
Broadway
hotels are all
shows are still
closed.
dark. The hotels are empty.
That looks very closed to me. It actually looks, is that
Graffiti
in
on
there?
the thing. What the hell is going on in there? Hyatt Center.
That's just out.
It's quite weird.
Then we've got, if you don't like the Connolly's, you can come here to Little Lenny's, so that's out.
Doesn't look good, Charles.
Yeah, well, this nice confetti in front of it.
I guess that's still from New Year's Eve. They still haven't cleaned it up.
From over there, too.
That's pretty unusual. I mean, isn't the sanitation department? I remember in past years I've found it remarkable how well they clean up the graffiti, the confetti the day after the New Year's Eve, and then here it is.
Past years is the operative.
But you know what? I mean, that's what happens when you go socialist, right? People don't care. Stuff doesn't work as well. One flavor of everything.
Yeah.
Check.
Got it?
Sometimes it comes back, but it's not doing something not good. Okay, it's back.
So one thing, just while we were broken there, I had a thought that I wanted to get in here.
Sure.
If we're going to learn from this debacle, if it goes the wrong way, an important lesson around a proud person and a powerful person like Donald Trump is you really should have a team when you examine every issue. You should have somebody whose job it is to say, what is going to happen should we lose this fight? So that you're not always thinking, we're going to win, we're going to win, we're going to win.
Right.
You know, you got to have people think it through and say, if we lose, these are the negative consequences, this is what could happen, these are the scenarios. That will actually prod you to work harder to win. I think when you get into only talking to your close, long-time ally like Giuliani and family members,
Yes, man, kind of.
and you're in a family business where your kids, don't want to piss you off. They don't want to get written out of the will.
But they're also, you're the dad. They're
Right.
not going to necessarily.
And you can end up losing bigly. And I hope that's not the lesson that we teach out of all this. I hope the lesson from behind victory. But
So here we are, Charles.
Should we
Times
keep
Square.
going?
Let's just take a quick look around.
I just want to make the light busy.
Okay, sure. How's it looking to you? Busy or? It looks kind of busy.
It's certainly busier, but it's not that busy.
Not normal, but not totally dead.
And we can stay away from these idiots so they don't assume that we want to
Yeah.
give them money, because we don't.
So, Charles, did we get an opportunity to speak about your feelings about them closing Times Square on New Year's Eve?
I think that's just outrageous. I mean, unless there was if there was a security risk, then there's no reason for de Blasio and his family members and other cronies to enjoy a party
Well, we're
while we're
corralled.
all locked down. I mean, the reality is that these city workers and pensioners, the state and federal workers and pensioners, they're collecting their checks no matter what. But the people who feed the public sector by private sector activity, they're the ones whose lives are shredded. And you take somebody, let's say, who's built up a business for 25, 30 years, just has decided to expand, then this Dr. Fauci bullshit happens, and they lose everything. And you can't build it back.
That's essentially the story of Mac's Pub. They had just opened, I think, in March.
Yeah. But I'm talking about somebody who's really got an investment of capital in there, maybe is taking
They did. Those guys, they kind of invested all their money in it, I think.
Right. And when you have a negative credit event that serious, that dire, it's virtually impossible to rebuild your credit history so that you can get to a place where you're going to borrow again.
Right.
I don't think Joe Biden could do that.
That's the one beat that guy has the whole time. I got to tell you something. I can't look at this from now on without thinking about Dersh. Because I changed that to say I want you to get vaccinated. With Dersh on there. And now Dersh is like, oh, I'll help Trump if they impeach him again. He wants to be his lawyer or whatever.
It's like the Dersh Show. It's not the podcast, it's life in the world.
Exactly.
It's the Dersh Show.
He's
It's
gotta
all
be
about
in there.
Dersh. No,
Dersh.
sorry. It's all about Dersh.
Not my kind of guy.
Now, I gotta say, I respect the police. I know there are many, many good police people, but if somebody showed up at a riot in that thing, like, come on.
Not
It's
impressed.
a clown car.
Well, I think that's the traffic police.
I don't think so.
I guess it's just for getting around in the city.
That's
huh?
his NYPD police. Traffic say traffic on them.
What's going on there?
I mean, you got some people crazed on whatever who could pick that thing up and toss it 50 feet with the occupants inside. Yeah, well, I guess back in March, I think we stood here in Times Square, and there were no people, there were no
Nobody.
cars. You could walk down the center of the street. And is it better than that? Yes. But it's not looking too good.
No.
And we've succumbed, we've submitted to this regime where we all wait with bated breath to hear what our government policymakers are going to tell us to do.
I don't
Because they know
understand.
how to run our lives better than we do.
Right.
The one thing I'd also like to comment on, calls for unity, and will those actually materialize? I mean, it's standard in politics to lie your ass off in a campaign and then pretend that you didn't make a promise or you didn't say you wouldn't do something, and then just go ahead and do the opposite. It's standard operating procedure. But for Joe Biden and his surrogates to say the kind of things that were said about Donald Trump, and then to run the election in the aftermath the way they ran it, and now to call for unity,
It's crazy.
it's never going to happen.
That's like those guys up at the park being like, oh, unity, and then chasing us.
I mean, the only way unity happens is if prior to releasing this report about UFOs, we wake up tomorrow morning and we look up and say, wait, what's all this? Look up and you see these big spaceships.
Right, trying to kill everybody.
Right. And, you know, you see these nice-looking aliens who are wearing suits to make them look like humans or whatever, you know, and then they meet with the first representative on Earth, and they say, "Oh, pleased to meet you, Mr. Biden, Mr. President."
Eat him.
Yeah, exactly. Who brought the ketchup? I'll take my Biden with ketchup. You know, I mean,
Tastes a little
short
bit
of
like
an
crack.
event, short of an event like that, because the pandemic has not united us in the slightest,
Divided everybody.
and the Biden-Harris administration is certainly not going to unite us. And I don't want violence at all, but I think on the balance of probability, you have, watch this, you have folks who have illegal handguns and other guns and are using them to engage in criminal activity. They're not going to listen to Biden. They didn't listen to Trump. And they're just going to rampage, particularly as they see the police do nothing.
Doing nothing.
Right. Then you've got law-abiding gun owners, fanatics, who know their history. And there are gun owners here in New York City, but they tend not to be in urban areas and more in rural areas that are tougher to police.
Well, because you're also not allowed to have a gun here in New York.
I know, but I'm just saying the notion that a national policy of taking your guns away
It's not
will
gonna
be
fly.
attempted by Merrick Garland, who is anti-NRA, anti-Second Amendment, and will be our Attorney General, in theory. If you're really going to push that, and Biden was apparently quoted as saying he's going to defeat the NRA in his first term. I mean, you want to pick your battles on the heels of this bruising
Yeah.
debacle of a fake election. To pick that issue to
Right.
lead with, that's really leading with your chin.
Yeah.
And so
And Biden's got a glass chin, Charles.
to begin with, come on, man,
Listen, fat.
you ain't black. But so these people have been emboldened by the fact that they may have succeeded in stealing the election. If they're going to do it,
It's red. Okay, there we go.
they may have succeeded in stealing the election, and so they'll think they can get away with this.
Anything.
They can get away with whatever they want.
That's the mood I feel around.
Yeah.
Is this, we won, we can do anything.
Right, and I don't know if you remember, if you were following politics closely back in 2008 after Obama won, there was a meeting with Obama and the Democrats and the Republicans, and the Republicans were talking about how to cooperate, whatever, and I think it's either Obama or his people said, you know, we won, you lost, get over it.
Right.
Get over it. And that was the attitude taken in his 8 years as president.
Yeah.
So, you know, the one thing I have observed out of all this, I left the Republican Party a long time ago, but you have to give it to the Democrats. They're much better at being nasty in a fight.
Sneaky, right.
Sneaky, nasty, and ultimately winning.
Well, they're good liars.
And they're
cheaters,
excellent liars, many of them.
schemers,
Right.
hoaxers,
And-
social engineers, and
And meanwhile, we have Bitch McConnell and
Yeah,
you know, Andy McCarthy. It's Kevin McCarthy.
I'm not part of that.
what
I don't have
America has,
Right.
you know, on the Republican side. Bitch McConnell, who I remember his complex arguments to say, you know, actually this concession, this cave-in to Obama, moron,
Guy went through the light.
on
That
a
guy went
zebra,
right through the red light.
on a zebra.
Ridiculous.
But, you know, he's not, Mitch McConnell's not a fighter, and nobody's ever asked him or the Republican Party the tough questions about Elaine Chao. Somebody I know or knew a long time
That's
ago.
his wife.
Yeah, and her family, you read New York Times articles, but her family's businesses are heavily dependent on China and being in the good graces of China.
Huh.
And here and they're a multi-billionaire family. I mean, one of the richest families on earth, frankly. And nobody's asking, you know, why is Bitch McConnell caving? You think it could have anything to do with the fact that, you know, his wife is saying, honey, I got the money. You're old.
Yeah.
You know, and my family wants you to do X, Y, and Z. In fact, they've told me to ask you to jump, and your correct answer is how high?
Yeah.
And then she reminds them that I had polio and I can't jump. But anyway,
He always looks like he's sweating.
yeah.
He looks
And it-
kind of like a
Yeah, and he goes out. I got nothing against people with accents. People tell me I have a bit of an accent. New York, I don't know what kind of accent it is, but Bitch McConnell sounds to me like before every time in front of the microphone, he goes and he gets some instant mashed potatoes and puts it in his mouth.
Yeah.
What did he say?
It's a trap. He reminds me of Admiral Akbar. That's what he looks like.
Who is he?
He's the guy in Empire Strikes Back who says, it's a trap! But he's like a frog man or something. I don't know. He's some Star Wars guy.
Yeah. Wow.
Tadpole dude. Well, we're definitely, Charles, getting close to a spot that has in the past knocked out the camera, but I don't know if it will. It seems to vary day to day.
If it does.
If it does, it'll be the end of the show. Sure. We've had a nice long broadcast. I definitely want to thank people who have been sticking with us throughout this, and definitely want to thank the generous sponsors who make the show possible. I certainly could not have gone to Washington, D.C. if not for the sponsors, so to the extent that people appreciate that footage and things like that, please become a sponsor of Crowdsource the Truth on patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth or subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth. The other reason why it's important is that I may have to start hosting videos in places other than YouTube, and
imminently.
Right. I mean, you might not have access to too many social media platforms, but for right now, Patreon and Subscribestar are still active and people can still see the shows there.
One quick thing to talk about, another initiative that Biden is now talking about is setting up a new law against domestic terrorists.
Right. And
what
that
is
a
mean, slippery slope.
Right.
Who decides who a domestic terrorist might be? And that, to me, if you're a civil libertarian, if you're somebody on the left, you should be really concerned about this. You should join with people on the right across the political spectrum and say, hang on, this crony capitalist corrupt asshole and his family are the last people who should be pushing domestic terrorism legislation, rushing it through, a la 9/11.
Right.
Well,
that's
9/11.
right. That's right. And then we'll all spend several years saying like, oh, Patriot Act, and then we see when they really want to put it into action what they can do. And you look around, and this is the result. Now, wait a minute. What do we got? Weed World Labs up there? What the hell? What is
Weed
going
World,
on there?
it's Hunter Biden. It's the angel investor behind it. I'm
What
kidding.
is
of course.
Weed World Labs?
No idea. It's a medical department.
I don't know. Weed World.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and 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 yeah, yeah, and looking out there. There's another Trump voter sharing our sentiments.
What did he say?
It was just a baby crying.
The impossible whopper.
Come on now. Thing I was going to say is,
Is it back?
not yet. Let's get this plugged in here.
Got it.
Check. All right, I think we're getting close to the end of the line
This
here.
is where we get hit, right?
Yeah, let's keep walking so we can move through it at least.
It's typically right here at 35th Street.
Yeah, there's something going on over here. Check. Check. Okay.
We're back?
So yes, I think people realize that, these types of things like oh yeah, we got to talk about something over here too. I think people realize these types of things like the Patriot Act, Charles, they're planned way in advance. So when they talk about a domestic terrorism law, you got to keep in mind, they've already decided that QAnon is domestic terrorism. So anybody who has posted about it in the past, they'll come and say, now we can investigate you as a terrorist. There are people who have tried to say, oh, Jason Goodman is supporting this thing, and I never did. Those people include George's brother, Jason Burmis, other people who love to make up lies. But the thing I wanted to tell you is Ben and Jerry's has a flavor of ice cream out now called Colin Kaepernick Change the Swirl. Change this swirl. And it's
Nice.
like swirled ice cream. And they have a big, we're going to show everybody the billboard. Oh, low battery. All right, we got enough battery to get to the Colin Kaepernick billboard. This is a 3-hour show here, Charles. But
3-hour tour.
what people are going to see on that Colin Kaepernick billboard is a swirly symbol that, again, the FBI associates with pedophilia, according to WikiLeaks.
Wow.
So, you know, I think a lot of people know about these symbols to the extent that you would think a big company with a whole marketing department, somebody would say, I'm not saying anything, but, you know, there are certain people who think this symbol is associated with something we don't want to be associated with. Look at that white car, Charles. What do you think of that? That looks like an undercover police car.
It does. It does indeed. Now this is the scene. It's the first walk around we did. We started right here, and we can. Those who remember that I forget if that was March 16th, March 20th, but it was back in March.
This has now become a heavy drug dealing spot.
Oh, yeah.
I always see cash changing hands and people
You see, this
passing off
guy's
weird
probably
things.
in distress. You know, a lot of people, and I feel for them. Of course, it doesn't help. Let's just slow it down a little bit.
Sure.
Yeah, this is really stupid. Anyone can invest. Start with $5. Don't look too closely at the fees that we're going to steal from you. That's just irresponsible. I'm not saying. I mean, if you're going to tell people to invest, you should explain the risks. You should explain the progression of how you put money aside.
I'm
You
feeling
should-
the handle twitching, so something might be about to happen.
All right.
Now the Colin Kaepernick thing, sorry to interrupt you, it's like right above our heads here. Let's turn around.
You talk on 33rd Street?
I know my rights, it says, and it says change the world. And you see that swirl right there?
He's an overcompensated, under-talented.
All right, well, Charles, we just lost the sound again,
All right.
and we're close to battery death.
So why don't we get past this?
Yeah, hit me with your last idea that you're getting into right there.
No, I'm more or less done. This could be. I mean, things are moving quickly. I hope this isn't our last broadcast on YouTube, but we could have things move very rapidly against us. Thanks for watching, and please support Jason's channel. It's the way he'll tell you how to.
Yes, absolutely. People can join and become sponsors on subscribestar.com/crowdsourcethetruth or patreon.com/crowdsourcethetruth. Hi. I think maybe that was somebody who liked us.
I don't know.
Or maybe she just wanted to be on camera. actually.
Probably.
She saw the camera, thought it was pointed at her. Anyway, thanks to all the wonderful people who said hello in Washington, D.C., the one nice guy who said hello here, and thanks to everybody for watching. Have a great night. I'll see everybody tomorrow.
This is interesting. How much police?
What?
The first time.
All right, wait, we'll keep it rolling here. Actually, yeah, let me keep it rolling because there's always weird stuff that happens the second I hit stop.
I've never seen this many police. I mean, something must have happened, or they must think something is going to happen.
Police are also wearing different uniforms. I've seen other police wearing. This is Amtrak police.
Oh, it says Department of Homeland Security on it.
Amtrak and DHS. Amtrak police and DHS police. I don't know what's going
Those
on.
guys to our right.
You know, this is huge problem area now.
Yeah, this is one of the main entry points into Manhattan Penn Station. It used to be. It's never been that nice. But you would think of all the money that de Blasio's scamming out of us and Cuomo's scamming out of us, somebody could say, you know what? First impressions are important. Let's make sure that when people arrive in the city, you don't see what we're watching. You don't see people in distress, buildings in distress, dirt and garbage.
And they don't care.
They don't.
All right, well, Charles, we're going to sign off.
All right.